Rajan, Adnan Abu al-Haija, who is our Palestinian ambassador. We are very glad he's there with us. Please come to the stage.
So maybe I can how making a little cherry. Yeah. So look at it.
Okay. to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
फिलिस्तीन की जनता का संघर्ष जिंदाबाद। फिलिस्तीनी जनता का संघर्ष जिंदाबाद। फिलिस्तीनी जनता का संघर्ष जिंदाबाद। फिलिस्तीनी जनता का संघर्ष जिंदाबाद।
फलस्तीन तुम संघर्ष करो,
हम तुम्हारे साथ हैं।
फलस्तीन तुम संघर्ष करो,
हम तुम्हारे साथ हैं।
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming in large numbers today. My name is Jean Drez. I'm an economist by training and one of the members of the informal citizens called Indians for Palestine that has convened this meeting. I will be chairing the meeting with Aisha Kidwai, who is sitting here. It will be a bilingual meeting. हम लोग इंग्लिश बात करेंगे, हिंदी में भी बात करेंगे. ज़्यादातर इंग्लिश में ही बात करूँगा, माफ़ कीजिए. We have a very distinct speakers. We are going to listen to them in two batches. Unfortunately, one effect of that is that the gender balance in this batch is not very good. It will be better in the second batch. I don't want to stand between you and the speakers because they have a lot to say. In fact, the time is going to be short. And I think our main job, Aisha and me as chairs, is to be very strict about time. I will ask all the speakers to be understanding in that respect. We have a contraption, a kind of bell that is in Aisha's hand that will be rung exactly 10 minutes after the speaker starts. And then the speakers will have about 1 minute to conclude, please, if possible, so that we can hear everybody by 6 o'clock, plus a testimony from a Palestinian woman and some messages of support. So we have a lot of ground to cover. For my part, I will only say one thing. I just want to make clear that for us, this meeting is not only a discussion forum, but also a form of protest against Israel's assault on Gaza at a time when other forms of protest are virtually impossible, at least in Delhi. Yesterday, I received a message from a friend in Tamil Nadu who told me, I have been to a protest on Gaza and there were only a few thousand people. So we are way behind. As we gather here today, bombs continue to rain on Gaza and the death toll continues to rise, even as more than 30,000 people have already been killed including about 85 journalists, 152 United Nations workers, 600 doctors and other health workers, and more than 12,000 children. This massacre is intentional, and that gives it the character of a genocide as defined under the Genocide Convention. The government of India, unfortunately, is complicit in this genocide in many ways. For instance, the government is facilitating the recruitment of Indian workers in replacement of Palestinian workers whose work permits have been suspended. It is subsidizing many joint ventures between Indian and Israeli weapons manufacturers, including some that involve the production of military drones for possible use in Gaza. In fact, more than possible use, I fear. And it is also facilitating the task of the Israeli government by suppressing all attempts at street protests against the invasion of Gaza. This complicity creates for us a duty to stand up not only against Israel's actions, but also against those of our own government. Indians for Palestine is an informal group of concerned citizens who have come together for this purpose. And since the Indian government, at least in Delhi, is preventing any street protest on this issue at the moment, we have decided to begin with a public meeting. But we are hoping that this meeting will lead to further action, and we invite all the speakers to share their thoughts and suggestions on this, in particular the speakers in the second part who will be leaders of political parties and organizations. So now let us begin the proceedings. In this part of the program, we will have a first round of speakers. Before that, we are going to hear a testimony of a Palestinian woman. We were not able to invite a Palestinian person here because it is not safe for them. And we are not even able to show you the video of this testimony because it will put that person in danger. So we are only going to listen to the audio of a Palestinian woman who is, her name is, I can give her name. Her name is Arwa Abu Hashash. She is a member of the Union of Palestinian Working Women's Committee and the Palestinian People's Party. So I will request everyone for pin drop silence because the audio, the volume is not very loud. So unless there is pin drop silence, we may not be able to understand what she says. So here is the testimony from Arwa Abu Hashash from Palestine. Thank you. It's about 10 minutes.
Please put off your phones. Okay. I'm sorry, just a minute.
One person. Today, actually, the population in the north of Gaza, they are suffering from a real famine, as all food supplies there have been exhausted, and the population there is left with only a little kind of food. Actually, they are not food, they are animal fodder, which the people there forced to use as substitute for flour. And the Ministry of Health there announced that the death of many residents there as a result of hunger, including children who didn't have any type of infant milk. Actually, the Israeli occupation also continues to arrest hundreds of Palestinians in Gaza Strip in extremely difficult conditions, as the detainees are subjected to torture and severe beating, and they being deprived from food and clothing, in addition to insulting their human dignity. And this actually including forcing them to sit naked or to walk in their all fours, to allow them to have food, or forcing them to imitate the sounds of some animals, and other insults that are unacceptable actually to human dignity. Actually, for the 137th day, the Israeli occupation state continues to target all aspects of life in Gaza Strip, including continuing targeting the and destroying the medical sector in Gaza Strip. And maybe you heard in the news that the most recent of which was targeting the Nasser Medical Hospital and Al Amal Hospital, which they have been subjected to a severe siege for more than a month, and the wounded and the sick and the medical staff and the displaced people who were in these two hospitals were suffering from a real catastrophic and a real catastrophic humanitarian situation, because the Israeli forces actually deprived them from food and water, and also deprived or cut off the fuel from the two hospitals. And this actually led to the death of more than 10 sick people as a result of the cessation of oxygen from the two hospitals due to the power of the outage. Actually, today, this actually part of the picture in Gaza Strip, and today we are passing through a very dangerous situation as the occupation forces actually has begun their criminal military occupation in operation on Rafah, and Rafah now actually inhabited by more than 1,400,000 displaced people, and the continuation of these operations will lead to a massacre that will result in tens of thousands of victims. So my brothers and my comrades, actually the language is incapable of describing the horror of the massacre that is taking place in Gaza Strip today. And I believe that you have seen dozens or hundreds of videos that actually pictures and documents the extent of the crime and that happening there, and these videos actually convey part of the suffering and the treatment actually of the Palestinian people there. Also, I believe that you have seen many videos of the occupation soldiers dancing and celebrating over the suffering of the Palestinian people in Gaza Strip. Maybe not the least of which is the horrific videos of soldiers dancing in the bombed children rooms and promising to kill more children and to kill more infants in Gaza Strip. My brothers and my comrades, for 75 years, the occupation state has tried to lie to the entire world and to cover up its truth as a colonial entity that has stolen the lands of another people, actually the lands of the Palestinian people. And this state and unfortunately its Western allies, led by the United States and also by Britain, have tried to take away also the right of the Palestinian people to resist this colonial project and to defend their right to their right in their land and to live in peace in their land. Actually, today this genocidal war, which is taking place in front of the entire world, in front of the entire world, actually exposes the truth of this colonial project, and also it's. And in front of this reality, we ask the Indian people and all free people in this world to keep showing solidarity with the Palestinian people. Actually, every single action matters, and in this dangerous stage that the Palestinian people are facing, the popular pressure that you as Indian people and the people all over the world can really change this reality and stop this genocidal war and stop displacing the Palestinian people in Gaza Strip. So we ask you to keep your solidarity actions, including participating in demonstrations, also keep boycotting the Israeli goods and the goods of the companies that support the Israeli occupation. And we also ask you to exercise pressure on the Indian government to stop its trade with the Israeli state, and especially trading in arm and buying or selling weapons to Israeli state. Finally, I want to thank you for your support for the Palestinian cause, and also I want to thank the Indian trade union and the Indian workers who 2 days ago announced that they refused to refused to load or unload any weapons that go to Israel or come from Israel.
थैंक यू। आप सबका बहुत शुक्रिया अदा करते हैं हम कि इतने भारी तादाद में आप लोग यहाँ इस मीटिंग में, जो जैसे जॉन ने कहा, ये एक प्रोटेस्ट मीटिंग है। ये हमारे दिलों में जो उन्माद है और गुस्सा है कि इतने दिन तक हमें चुप रखा गया है दिल्ली में, खासकर कि क्योंकि हमारी जो एक बहुत लंबी परंपरा है फिलिस्तीनियों का साथ देने, हमारे फ्रीडम मूवमेंट के गांधी जी ने 1936, 1946 में या 48 में बहुत लंबे हरिजन में आर्टिकल लिखे थे कि हम किस तरीके से फिलिस्तीनियों के उनके अपनी ज़मीन पे, उनके अपने घरों पे, उनके अपने कौन सा फॉर्म ऑफ गवर्नमेंट वो इस्टेब्लिश करेंगे, उन सब पे उनका हक है। और हमारी आवाज़ आज तक इस दिल्ली के शहर में चुप करी गई है। पर आप सबकी उपस्थिति से एक, चाहे फिलिस्तीनियों का हम कुछ ना कर पाए, पर हम ये जरूर दिखाते हैं कि हम सब उनके साथ हैं और हिंदुस्तान की जनता ने फिलिस्तीनियों का साथ नहीं छोड़ा है। मैं और कुछ नहीं कहूंगी, बस मुझे सबसे पहले एक अनाउंसमेंट करना है that the South African ambassador wanted to come for the meeting, but there is another meeting that he has to attend, which is the Raisina Dialogues. And I'll just read out to you the line, the short email that he sent us. Thank you very much for your email and kind invitation to participate in the 23rd February 2023. Regrettably, I will not be able to participate owing to the participation of our Deputy Minister at the Raisina Dialogues from 21 to 23rd February. Wishing you all the very best for your event. And if today humanity can raise its head high, it is because of South Africa. Because they have lived up to the legacies of their freedom movement, of their founding thinkers. Whereas India has reluctantly and screamingly finally taken a position that is for a ceasefire. So we are gathered here today to say that we stand and we demand a ceasefire now. That is the call of this meeting. But without further ado, let me also, the other thing I need to ask, and you can imagine that we are a bunch of basically motley individuals and small groups that have gathered together. A donation box will be taking the rounds here. Whatever way that you can support this cause, so to bear the cost for the organizing of this meeting. And hopefully we shall have many such meetings which are protest actions. So I would now very happy to call Anand Grover, जिनका नाम, I mean, इनको introduction की तो जरूरत है नहीं, especially for these generations, क्योंकि he is the founder member of the Lawyers Collective. He is a senior lawyer and a human rights activist. He has served as a UN rapporteur on health. And of course, we all know him for the exemplary work in the NAS Foundation's legal case for the repeal of Section 377 of the IPC. But in the last few months, he has been particularly educative and very closely following South Africa's case, because to make a case for genocide is itself an extremely radical proposition to put forth, and that too before a court. And he has written about it in the leaflet. So we would like to request Mr. Grover to come and share his thoughts. Thank you.
I must confess that when Achan asked me to speak and he said, "You're limited to time," I thought I was facing the US Supreme Court. After 12 minutes, there's a guillotine, you're cut off. But in India, you know, you can speak forever. So I've actually written down points. So, well, I think it's a very, very important that we are meeting here. First of all, it's great to have friends and comrades in the same room. It's been a very long time. I want to thank the organizers of the conference for inviting me to this very, very, I'm emphasizing, important meeting. This meeting is to talk about genocide being committed by Israel on the Palestinian people. Today, it is not only the civil society organizations that are saying that Israel is actually committing genocide in Palestine and on the Palestinian people. It is the International Court of Justice, ICJ, the highest international judicial body, which adjudicates on this precise issue, that has pronounced by its interim order of 26 January 2024 that indeed there is a plausible case. And that's a very legal term, but in my opinion, it is actually saying that genocide is being committed by Israel on the Palestinian people. And as the introduction said, there has been silence. And there's been silence enforced tacitly or actively by authorities all over the world, barring very few strong exceptions, one of them notably Ireland. And you should actually see, if you have an opportunity, please see the video, how Sinn Féin has supported the Palestinian struggle throughout, like the African National Congress in South Africa. Now, there has been silence, and there's been silence in this country. Fortunately, in the US and Europe, huge number of very, very large demonstrations have taken place to protest against the Israeli action. The good thing is that this included large number of Jewish people, and I have been a witness to it because I go to the US to teach. And I met large number of Jewish young people who declared to the Israeli authorities, "Not in my name." And I spoke to them, and what they told me was, and this is very important because the moment you speak against Israel, you're supposed to be anti-Semitic. They said, if you oppose Israel, you're not anti-Semitic. You're just opposing a Zionist project, which is very different from being anti-Semitic. In India, the silence has to be broken. And I'm glad we are starting today. And that indeed is the import of this meeting. Please do not forget, this is a very, very important meeting. As we speak, the interim order of the ICJ is being broken and breached incessantly. As of today, there are nearly 30,000 deaths of Palestinians. Now, South Africa invoked the jurisdiction of the ICJ. I'm sorry, I have to be a bit technical because I was given a brief to do the legal part. I'm trying to do that. Approached the ICJ under the Genocide Convention to prevent the commission of genocide on the Palestinian people. As both parties are parties to the Genocide Convention, South Africa as a state, please remember, individuals can't approach the court, could bring a case under the Genocide Convention. And here, simply because South Africa had the courage, we have to salute them. That courage is sadly lacking in other countries. And despite other issues concerning South Africa and the president, we have to salute them. And I must also salute that the president left it to the legal team to decide what the composition was. And I happen to know quite a few of them. And they have a brilliant team. Not only that, actually, I must say, and Salman is here, my good friend at the Supreme Court, that it puts our legal fraternity to shame by the quality of arguments, the preparation, etc. It's very sad for me to say it, but it's true. And I hope this will bring a change in and they did a fantastic job in 1 month. Now, genocide has a particular meaning. It is in relation to what is known as identified group, which constitutes a distinct national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. And therefore, it is considered to be a protected group under the convention. And genocide is killing members of that particular group, causing serious bodily harm or mental harm to that group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, or imposing measures intended to prevent births within that group, or forcibly transferring children of that group to another group. Now, the order of the ICJ is very interesting. I'm not in the technicalities. There were 17 judges, and under the law, you can have one judge from the respective states. So one from South Africa and one from Israel. They're known as ad hoc judges. The voting on most counts was 15-2 in favor of the South Africa's application for what are called preventive measures. But on one issue that Israelis must take action to prevent speeches on genocide by Israeli ministers, even the ad hoc judge from Israel supported. So it was 16-1. That's very significant. It puts a nail in the coffin of the argument of Israelis. Now, relying on the data which was actually collected, and most of the data is the UN data, rapporteurs, etc. The ICJ noted that the military operation being conducted by Israel following the attack of 7th October 2023 resulted in a large number of deaths, injuries, and as well as massive destruction of homes, the forcible displacement of the vast majority of population, extensive damage to civil infrastructure. Information indicated that at that time, 25,700 Palestinians had been killed, over 63,000 injured, 360,000 housing units have been destroyed, partially or fully, and 1.7 million Palestinians displaced out of 2 million. Just imagine, can you imagine, out of 2 million, nearly 80% of the population is displaced. This is the havoc wreaked by the genocidal action of the Israelis. The quote, why I'm using this is the quote has said it. It's not Anand Grover or the Palestinians or the South Africans saying it. It's the quote saying this. And it says, an unprecedented 93% of the population in Gaza was facing crisis level of hunger, insufficient food, high levels of malnutrition. At least 1 in 4 households are facing catastrophic conditions, experiencing an extreme lack of food or starvation, and having resorted to selling of their possession and other extreme measures to afford a simple meal. Please see the plight of those people. Starvation, destitution, and death are evident. This is the quote saying is, please remember that. Overcrowded and unsanitary UN shelters have now become home to more than 1.4 million people. They lack everything from food to hygiene to privacy. People live in inhumane conditions where diseases are spreading, including amongst children. They live through unlivable, with the clock ticking fast towards famine and death. The plight of children in Gaza was especially heartbreaking. An entire generation of children is traumatized and will take years to heal. Thousands have been killed, maimed, and orphaned. Hundreds and thousands are deprived of education. Their future is in jeopardy with far-reaching and long-lasting consequences. The genocide is very important. It's different from other international war crimes because it requires an intent. So that is the intent to obliterate that particular community. What was the intent manifested by speeches of the Israeli leaders? So the court noted that Mr. Isaac Herzog, president of Israel, stated, it is an entire nation, meaning the Palestinian nation, out there that is responsible. It is not true this rhetoric about civilians are not aware, not involved. It is absolutely not true. They could have risen up, they could have fought against the evil regime which took over Gaza in the coup d'etat. So instead of saying Hamas is responsible, the entire population is responsible. Yoav Gallant, defense minister of Israel, announced that he had ordered complete siege of the Gaza city and there would be no electricity, no food, no fuel, and everything will be closed. Just imagine that. Israel Katz, the Minister of Energy and Infrastructure of Israel, stated, all the civilian population in Gaza is ordered to leave immediately. We will win. They will not receive a drop of water on a single battery until they leave the world. Not leave Gaza, leave the world. The court actually considered that there was an urgency in the sense that there was a real and imminent risk that irreparable prejudice will be caused to the rights found by the court to be plausible before the final decision. So interim measures had to be ordered. Basically, the interim measures seek the prevention of actions which will lead to genocide. I'm not getting into that, you can read them. Now, despite the interim order, I'll finish in 1 minute. the death toll is increasing. As I said, it's nearly 30,000. Now, the Genocide Convention was born out of the Holocaust in Germany. It's ironic, isn't it, that the state of Israel, which was set up to protect the Jews who were persecuted in Europe and which led to the Holocaust in Germany, is today perpetrating genocide on the Palestinian people. This irony will not be lost. And I'll just tell you one thing, if I may, with permission of the chair. I was in Germany about 10 years ago. I was invited by students to speak. And I asked them over a dinner, what do you feel about your grandfathers and grandmothers who were part of the Holocaust? You know what they said? Their actions are actually affecting us. So please, Israel, don't think that your future generations will forget what you've done. They'll unfortunately have to pay for your actions. That's the tragedy. Most unfortunately, the US and Europe are funding the Israeli military machine to commit genocide. They're also complicit in the genocide. In fact, in law and morally. Now, does it mean, and this is my last point if you don't mind, that the principles enshrined in the international law by covenants, but not enforced by states, when they're inconvenient to them because of the geopolitical and economic interests, have no meaning anymore? It's a big question I teach, and students are asking me, what is this international law? Why should we have any faith in it? Should they be done away with? Very pertinent question. It is important to remember that the principles are different from those people who implement them. It is not that the principles are faulty. It is those persons who are to oversee those principles who are at fault. The principles are like our constitution, which needs to be preserved. The interim order of the ICJ restores the faith of some people in the values enshrined in these international principles, including the Genocide Convention. As I said earlier, it is important to speak not only about the values of the Constitution and the threats to it, it is also important to speak about the principles in international law which will preserve the Palestinian nation and free Palestine. Thank you. I'm one of the lawyers who sticks to time.
Thank you, Mr. Grover, for a very useful introduction and for cooperating with the timekeeping. It was particularly interesting and useful to listen to the point about the intentional nature of the crisis that is happening today, because that is a key element of this. And the statement you have quoted from the President, Mr. Herzog, is only one of a long list of statements of a similar nature. And I think one thing we learned from Hiroshima to Gaza is that the worst atrocities can not only be perpetrated, they can be justified and even applauded. That's a very frightening thought in an age where the world is chock full of the worst possible weapons. Since time is short, we'll move straight to the next speaker, Mr. K.P. Fabian, who is a distinguished member of the Indian Foreign Service, has served in many countries around the world from 1964 to 2000, and is now distinguished professor at Symbiosis and at the Indian Society of International Law. His latest book is The Arab Spring That Was and Wasn't, and he has written on Israel and Palestine, and particularly recently on what he calls the moral bankruptcy of global leaders. Mr. Fabian.
Thank you, Co-Chair Professor Yonderes. I mention your name almost every day to those who come for the mock interview for the civil service. And all of them know you, and most of them have read, and most who have read you have understood you. Dear fellow fighters for justice, because Palestine means justice. You know, we speak about the genocide being committed by Israel. Correct. But to get the full picture, we should say the genocide being committed by Israel and permitted by the international community with very few exceptions. Now, the ICJ, I will not say that it is neither international nor a court of justice, as Jawaharlal Nehru once said about the ICS. I have the highest of respect for the ICJ. But at the same time, I should say that it took a small step in the right direction, a calculatedly small step. Another thing is that a strange use of the English language. The mention was made by Mr. Grover, and I agree with every word he said. Plausible. Now, in the text, they say, ICJ asks itself a question. Have the violation of the rights of the group as alleged by South Africa have been committed by Israel? And then it says plausible rights. The adjective plausible is applied to rights. Now tell me, as already pointed out, the ICJ says that the Palestinians do come under the ambit of the definition of genocide. And as already pointed out, how many? More, about 26,000 of them had been killed till then. 29. No. I mean, when the ICJ verdict was being given. So, well, what is the most fundamental right? The right to life. If you don't have the right to life, what is the use of all other rights? And do the Palestinians have that right? Well, I don't think we have to tell the ICJ about the UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So, why did they use the word plausible? Of course, there can be legal argument, lawyers use words, according in their own fashion. But ICJ is meant to give a verdict which is understandable for the international community, not only for lawyers. Now, so my short answer is that, or rather, the question, why did the ICJ fail to call a spade a spade? Well, the short answer is the ICJ did not give a verdict without fear or favor. Justice, the judge is supposed to give a verdict without fear or without favor. Now, that's not what ICJ did. But anyway, this is only the beginning. But now comes another question. Eminent jurists have said it would take months and months, if not longer, for the ICJ to determine whether genocide was being committed. Now, I find it a little difficult to understand. And let me ask the ICJ, what is the point of determining that genocide was committed post factum, after so many thousands have been killed? And why should you take so that long? Are not the facts obvious? So, there is some problem there. Now, let us look at the big picture, because ICJ is only part of the big picture. It's the United Nations highest court, and we know that the Security Council has till now failed. Why? That is because the West under the leadership of the United States, speaks about a rule-based international order, but that applies only to the West. What happens to the rest of the world doesn't matter. A Western life is very valuable. Non-Western lives, well, they do not practically count. When, civilians die in Ukraine, the West, the governments and the media, correctly, they speak about it. But when civilians die elsewhere, well, sometimes they don't have the time. Now, about Holocaust. I had written an article saying that, is Netanyahu imitating Hitler while Biden is sleepwalking to electoral disaster? Well, it seems that is happening. The only difference between the Holocaust and what is now happening, that this one is televised. That Holocaust, well, we came to know much later. But what is sad is that despite its being televised, the international community is permitting it to continue. Now, to go back to ICJ for a second, 50 states have transmitted their intention to make presentations. I went through the list. I could not locate India's name. Well, the leader of the Global South, Vishwaguru, Vishwamitra, well, please speak up. Let a message go from here through the Kartavya path to the South Bloc. To New York, the Security Council. To The Hague, the ICJ, and to Palestine. Question, is India a diminished democracy? I wouldn't say that. We are not a diminished democracy. We are a self-correcting democracy. And we shall overcome. This too shall pass. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador Fabian, for keeping time. ऐसे मौकों पे एक्चुअली ये जो हमें साइन बोर्ड दिखाने और घंटी बजाना अच्छा नहीं लगता है, पर वो भी एक सेल्फ करेक्शन को हम तरीका मान लें हम. हमारे अगले वक्ता हैं अगेन somebody who needs no introduction, सिद्धार्थ परदराजन. जैसे कि यहाँ सभी उपस्थित होंगे, आप एक ही न्यूज सोर्स हमारे पास बाकी है जिसको हम पढ़ के कुछ सीख सकते हैं और एक्चुअली इस पे रिलाई कर सकते हैं, वो है द वायर. ये फाउंडर ये वायर के फाउंडर एडिटर हैं. उससे पहले मैंने बहुत साल से जर्नलिस्ट रह चुके, हिंदू के भी एडिटर थे. एंड मोस्ट रिसेंटली आई मीन सिद्धार्थ ने तो सब इश्यूज के बारे में ऐसी खूबसूरती से लिखा है, पर आई थिंक one of the most important things that Siddhartha said, I guess we'll have to say last week, because he says important things every week, is that finally the ICJ has given a name to the historic injustice that the Palestinians have been facing. जो हम यहाँ पूरा जो मजमा बैठा है वो फिलिस्तीनी को सपोर्ट भी की, क्यों हमें मालूम है कि 1948 एक डेट रह सकते हैं, पर उससे पहले एक नरसंहार हो रहा है और एक जेनोसाइड हो रहा है फिलिस्तीनियों के ऊपर, और आज 2024 में उसका फाइनली उसको नाम मिला है। वो हिस्टोरिकली जो इनजस्टिस है उसका नाम है जेनोसाइड। तो मैं सिद्धार्थ से रिक्वेस्ट करूंगी कि वो आकर के अपनी बातें रखें। आप आई हैं,
जी।
थैंक यू।
मैं should I speak in Hindi? English? Hindi. Okay, I'll speak in Hindi. English? Okay. Well, I think for the sake of our friends from overseas, I'll speak in English. Maybe throw in a few Hindi words here and there, sentences. You know, for the longest time, we have lived under the illusion, in a way cherished the illusion, that as human beings, successive generations of human beings, we allowed all kinds of atrocities to happen. The mass slaughter of recruited, enlisted men in World War I, the insane killing of civilians and the Holocaust in World War II. We allowed this to happen because we didn't know what was happening. In the Allied occupation of Germany, one of the important steps that the Allies took was to show movie reels and photographs of concentration camps to the German population, on the assumption that they didn't know what was happening. And if only they had known, they might have prevented it. And the West certainly. And of course, there's a whole literature now as to how the West was pretty well informed as to what was happening. First word of what was happening in Auschwitz was available well before the Red Army liberated that camp and exposed the horrors to the world. But the illusion that we lived under was that if only the world could have seen, if only we'd seen those images, if only we'd seen that footage, we would have risen as one and ensured that it didn't happen. And I'm sorry to say that what the Gaza genocide has proved to us is that it doesn't matter. You can have any kind of footage, and we all have seen heartrending photographs, video clips, audio clips of mass murder, of genocide happening in real time before our very eyes. The same footage is available to the entire world, to all world leaders. Yet, you still have countries and leaders who hesitate about something so basic as demanding a ceasefire. You have countries that continue to sell weaponry to perpetuate the killing that is happening, including the government of India, because recently, as we saw in the media, there were reports of the Adani Elbit joint venture in Hyderabad selling drones to the IDF, the same kind of drones that are being used. It doesn't matter if the one made in Hyderabad is currently in use, these weapons are fungible. So all the footage that we can see, all the imagery that we know has not made one bit of difference to a certain category of world leaders, certain kind of government, of course. The most culpable in this regard is the United States, which has in the past used its influence and authority and power over the Israeli state to put an end to the insane use of force as and when it's happened, as and when they chose to in the past. And people have cited the 80s Israeli attack on Lebanon as an example. The United States is consciously choosing to allow the genocidal killing of Palestinians to continue. But it's not just the United States that's culpable. Ambassador Fabian spoke about the Vishwaguru complex. Our foreign minister loves using the phrase Vishwamitra, India as a friend of the world. What kind of a friend of the world are you? When you do not want to lift a finger, when you do not want to speak the truth about what is happening. I saw his participation in the Munich Security Conference the other day. He was on a panel with the American Secretary of State and the German Foreign Minister. And these three foreign ministers were talking as if the ICJ did not exist. There was no reference to what the ICJ had found. Two of those three foreign ministers, their governments had judges on that panel. And this was as unanimous, as convincing a verdict as you can get. But this is irrelevant as far as they are concerned, because they don't want to do anything to stop the killing. I was astonished that the foreign minister believes that you can have business as usual. The other day, speaking at the Raisina dialogue in Delhi, he chose to wax eloquent about the so-called India-Middle East Economic Corridor. Why? Because he says the turmoil in the Red Sea shows the importance of a new corridor. Hello, this new corridor is supposed to run through Israel. Israel is in the middle of conducting a genocidal war. The turmoil in the Red Sea is a result of that genocidal war. And you have a foreign minister who cannot join the dots and come to a simple conclusion. And we have to look, and the same foreign minister and the same prime minister take great pride in saying India as a leader of Global South, how as G20 president we gave voice to Global South and so on and so forth. The real leaders of the Global South today are South Africa, Brazil, whose president Lula made a very, very sharp observation, which led the Israeli prime minister to say he is persona non grata. And I would say that Lula will probably wear that as a badge of honor. So there are countries, there are leaders who are willing to stand up and speak out for what is correct. Here, not only does the government not speak, the government is complicit. Jean mentioned how the government of India is facilitating the export of a new kind of indentured labor. Not only are you subjecting Indian workers to all the risks that come with working in a conflict zone, but you are undermining the decades-long solidarity between India and Palestine, between the people of India and Palestine. You are making it easier for the Israeli state to target Palestinian civilians, deprive them of their livelihood. We're talking about a people who live under illegal occupation. There's a second hearing going on at the ICJ based on a recommendation by the UN General Assembly on the consequences of Israel's continued illegal occupation of the Palestinian territories. India, again, is one of the countries that's not going to be speaking there. I saw a very good presentation by Bangladesh and by lots of other countries. But we're talking about an occupied people already living at the edge, being deprived of any economic opportunities, and now the Modi government being complicit, making it easier for Benjamin Netanyahu to do what he's doing. Worse, when people in India want to raise their voice, you can't have a public protest in Delhi. We've seen examples of people in Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, and other states being prosecuted for a WhatsApp status or a Facebook post in solidarity with the people of Palestine. So there is no freedom of speech when it comes to the people of India wanting to stand in solidarity with their fraternal people in Palestine. This is the state of affairs in the country that claims to be Vishwaguru, Vishwamitra, whatever. In the last year and a half, the world has seen two bloody wars, both of which are continuing, which have taken a huge toll in terms of civilian lives. The Russian invasion and aggression of Ukraine and the Israeli genocidal war on the people of Palestine. There is, to my knowledge, only one country, only one government that has refused. Most countries have condemned one or the other, and that speaks to a different kind of double standard. There is one country that is quite happy to stand with Putin and stand with Mr. Netanyahu, and that's the government of Mr. Modi. This is the reality of the kind of regime that we are looking at here. And Jean and Aisha were saying that we need to deliberate on how to change things. It's clear that governments by themselves, these governments by themselves, have no intention of lifting a finger to put a stop to the genocide that's going on. It's up to the people of these countries to find every means possible to raise their voice, to speak out in meetings, seminars, media, social media, have events. We've seen massive protests in the UK, large but smaller protests in the United States, in Germany, Norway. People everywhere are saying, not in my name. And I think that this meeting in Delhi is a very, very good start. देर आए दुरुस्त आए. इससे पहले भी ऐसी मीटिंग्स होनी चाहिए थी, लेकिन हालात यहाँ पे क्या हैं हम अच्छी तरह समझते हैं. बाहर जरा मीटिंग करने की कोशिश अगर आप करेंगे तो पूरी तरह से पुलिस इस पे रोक लगाने की कोशिश करेगी. और किसानों के साथ जो दुर्दशा हो रहा है ये आप देख सकते हैं. So we are looking at a situation where the right to protest has virtually been snatched away from people. But we have to find ways to make our voices heard. We have to find ways to speak out. We have to find ways to stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine and to insist that even if the government of India under Mr. Modi does not have the moral courage to call a spade, to condemn, doesn't have the courage to condemn what the Israeli state is doing, but you have no business and no right to facilitate the genocide through the sale of weaponry and by sending Indian labor as a kind of a new form of indenture into a conflict zone and making it easier for the Israeli state to further marginalize and victimize the people of Palestine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Siddharth. I take this opportunity to thank The Wire for live streaming this event. I don't think we mentioned that earlier. The event is being live streamed by The Wire. Thank you. Siddharth rightly pointed out that one of the chief reasons for the complicity between Israel and India is the deep ties between the two countries in the defense and surveillance sectors. And in fact, when Indians for Palestine began, we were interested in doing something to expose these ties. I have here a very partial list of Indian companies that are involved in defense ventures with Israeli companies, many of them subsidized by the government of India, in particular under the Make in India program. It includes first and foremost, of course, the Adani Group, but also Reliance, Mahindra, Ashok Leyland, TCS, Tata, Infosys, Wipro, Larsen Toubro, Punj Lloyd, etc., etc. The list goes on and on. So I think this is something that needs to be more widely known. Our next speaker, we are very fortunate to have with us today none other than the Palestinian ambassador, Mr. Adnan Abu Al-Haija. Let us welcome him warmly. He has been
Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea. Palestine will be free.
just
Thank you very much.
Sorry. Yep, okay.
Namaste. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon. Allow me to thank you all to give me this opportunity to be with you in this event and to thank the Indian people and Indian for Palestine who are supporting the Palestinian struggle. Today we are on the 150 days of the Israeli aggression on Gaza Strip. And I think many people have been surprised of what has happened on the 7th of October. But I think also people who is following the situation in Palestine for the last 75 years won't be surprised of what has happened on the 7th of October. "75 years of torture, of killing, of massacres of this regime, and especially at the last 56 years in West Bank and Gaza Strip. And the international community, I don't know if they are blind or closing their eyes, they don't want to see what's going on Palestine. Hundreds of resolutions at the United Nations, none of them, even one, more than 800 resolutions, none of them has been implemented, and Israel ignored the United Nations and its resolutions. Sure, the United States are part of the aggression on the Palestinian people, and we have noticed how many times they used the veto against the Palestinian people. It has been used more than 114 veto against since 1948 against the Palestinian people. So the international community, when they ignore what's going on to the Palestinian people and they think that the Palestinian people, just a refugee, can get some assistance from UNRWA or the European countries or others, they don't know that the Palestinian people are struggling now for more than 100 years, since 1917 when the British entered Palestine, especially when the Palestinian people have gotten news about Balfour Declaration at that time. Now, let me say that there is two reasons for what has happened on the 7th of October. There is indirect, which we have spoken a little bit about it, and there is the direct. The indirect, that Netanyahu always ignore the state of Palestine, and he announced that there will never be state of Palestine in the land of what he called it Israel. Confiscating land in West Bank and build thousands of units of settlements. Not allowing any Palestinian to build a new house or expand his house if the family became a little bit bigger and he needs 1 or 2 rooms in his home. And I think you have seen many of the Palestinians have a hammer and demolishing what he has built, because if he did not do that, they will bring the bulldozer to do it, and he has no money to pay the fees of the bulldozer. So he built by his hand what he has built. There is 645 military checkpoints between the cities and the towns, which minimize the Palestinian movement. And Many of our women give birth on those military checkpoints. Attacking every night homes to detain children, some of them 11, 12 years old. They come after midnight at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's easily just to give them an order to his father and he will bring him to the police station next day. But they don't do that. They want to free the Palestinian people. They want to free the children. When it comes to Gaza, I think all of you knows that our people, 2.3 million of our people are living in an open prison for 17 years now. This blockade led to about 70% of poverty in this area. The area of Gaza Strip is 365 kilometers square. Those 2.3 million are living in this small area. In the prisons, there is, before 7th of October, there was 5,000 prisoners at the Israeli prisons. Some of them before Oslo Accord. And when it comes to the direct reasons, this government of Israel, it is the most extreme government in Israel history. Since this government has been formed in December 2022, 260 Palestinians has been killed before 7th of October. This government is the most government who confiscate land and build a new settlements unit or expand other settlements. In the other side, as I said, they demolish the Palestinian. They don't allow the Palestinian. They don't give them permission to make any kind of building. And if they did for any reason, they will demolish that home. Since Ben Ghafir, this Minister of National Security of Israel, who is one of the most extreme people, enjoy in torturing our prisoners. Also, they raise displacing or evacuating our people from East Jerusalem. When it comes to Al-Aqsa Mosque, they divided Al-Aqsa Mosque in time, which the Palestinians are not allowed to enter Al-Aqsa Mosque from 7 o'clock in the morning till 11:30. And anyone, if he shout Allahu Akbar, they take him to jail. They are planning to divide Al-Aqsa Mosque in a place also where they are planning to build their temple in Al-Aqsa Mosque. They confiscate the Palestinian tax money. And not only that, but also the salary of our militaries, our wounded people, and our detainees people. What's the target of this aggression against Gaza Strip? It is mainly to evacuate people from Palestine, from Gaza Strip to Egypt, and from West Bank to Jordan. This is the main target of the Israeli government. And because of that, they have destroyed more than 80% of Gaza Strip building. They destroy the infrastructure in Gaza. They demolish homes, schools, universities, hospitals, mosques, churches, water pipes, electricity, infrastructure. At the same time, they don't allow the humanitarian aid to enter to Gaza. And there is a real hunger now, especially in the north of Gaza. Maybe Arwa spoke a little bit about the situation, but whatever we talk about the situation in Gaza, no one can describe the living in Gaza. And I don't think if the Nazis done something, the government of Israel has not do till now. Here also, we'll talk about the genocide, where the Israelis killed about 30,000 of our people. All of them, or the majority of them, are civilian people, and the majority of them are children and women. And they wounded more than 69,000 people. And to cover its crimes, it kills 125 journalists. Israel considers itself that they have the right to commit all these crimes, and no one allow even to criticize Israel if his person or organization or country or the United Nations itself. And we have heard many times how the Israelis attack the United Nations and the General Secretary of the United Nations or the coordinator of the Middle East. Also, they attack UNRWA. Finish time? 2 minutes? Okay. Okay. I have to choose now. Yeah, I mean, you know, they attack UNRWA, and sorry to say that 7 countries directly freeze their donation to UNRWA without any evidence. UNRWA, it has 13,000 employees. They were talking about 12 employees, right? And without any evidence, they frozen, 7 countries frozen their assistance to UNRWA. Now, Israel attacks UNRWA, it's not a new thing, or not for the first time. Why? Because UNRWA is related to the right of return to the Palestinian people. It has been established by the UNGA resolution 194, which this resolution gives the Palestinian refugee to return to Palestine. And because of that, the Israelis, they want to destroy UNRWA, and they want to delete UNRWA from the United Nations and keep the refugee to any other organization, no problem. They can give assistance, but not UNRWA. Anyway, I think the world should move quickly, end this strategy in Gaza Strip, where more than 1.5 million facing a real hunger. This war is to evacuate people from Palestine. Our decision is to live and die in the land of Palestine. International community should move quickly, because the next war, if they did not find a political solution and establish the state of Palestine on the land of 1967 with East Jerusalem as its capital, the next war will be much worse than this war. So they are responsible, the international are responsible to impose a solution, because if you leave it to this government, there will never be a political solution. Before I end my speech, I would like to thank our brothers in South Africa and all countries. All countries support the Palestinian cause, and we have many, by the way. We have Colombia, we have Bolivia, we have Chile, we have Brazil, Ireland, Belgium, we have many, Spain, many countries. So thank for the all. Thank you very much, and forgive me for delay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abu Al-Haja. It was really a privilege for us to have you here. At the end of this meeting, we are hoping to pass a resolution, which is also a statement of solidarity. And on behalf of Indians for Palestine, I would request you to try to convey this statement to the people of Palestine. Arwa Abu Hashash, who we heard on audio, said in her statement that every single action matters. I think that was an important statement she made. This is a very small action, but we are hoping that it will matter a little bit. I was lucky to spend some time in Palestine in 1991, and I remember vividly how warmly the Palestinians welcomed Indian people in particular, because they thought of India as a reliable supporter at that time. Unfortunately, it is not the case anymore, but we are still completely with us. I think that message has to come loud and clear. This concludes the first part of the program. In the second part, we will hear representatives of political parties, including Mr. Salman Khurshid, who will be the first speaker. Before that, we would like to hear a poem that Apurvanand is going to read for us, and one or two messages of support. We have received many messages of support. Because we are running behind time, we will not be able to read them all, but I will request Anjali to read one message of support, and also in Hindi, the statement that was issued by the port workers of India, because they have given us a terrific example of solidarity in action. And I think action is what is needed, and not just words. Words, of course, are also important, but what is important is action. So, Apurvanand, if you can...
बहुत शुक्रिया। दरअसल मसला सिर्फ एक कविता पढ़ने का नहीं था, ये बताने का कि दिल्ली और हिंदुस्तान के हिंदी के कवियों ने दिसंबर के महीने में फ़िलिस्तीन के नस्लकुशी के खिलाफ फ़िलिस्तीनी कविताओं का एक संकलन शाया किया था हिंदी में 27 दिसंबर को, और इस संकलन की बिक्री का सारा पैसा, जो बहुत कम है, लेकिन वह फ़िलिस्तीनियों की राहत के लिए दिया जा रहा है। यह किताब बाहर है। इस किताब का नाम है कविता का काम आंसू पोंछना नहीं। इसमें 32 फ़िलिस्तीनी कवियों की 85 कविताएं हैं, और आपसे यह गुजारिश है कि आप बाहर निकलते वक्त इस किताब को ख़रीदें। हम सब लोग महमूद दरवेश और एडवर्ड सईद के साथ बड़े हुए हैं, इसलिए फ़िलिस्तीन एक तरह से हम सब के वजूद का हिस्सा है। और इस वजह से जब हम आज ये सुनते हैं कि फ़िलिस्तीन खाली ज़मीन थी, कोई वतन नहीं, कोई मुल्क नहीं, किसी मुल्क के होने का गवाह उसकी शायरी है। और फ़िलिस्तीनी शायरी पूरी दुनिया की हर जुबान में अब मौजूद है और इस वजह से हम उसे हिंदी में लाए, क्योंकि जब फिलिस्तीनी आवाज का गला घोंटने की कोशिश की जा रही है तो जरूरी है कि हम अपनी सारी जुबानों में उस आवाज को ले जाएं। मैं उसमें से सिर्फ एक कविता पढ़ रहा हूं जो ज़कारिया मोहम्मद की है। अरबी से अंग्रेजी में इसका तर्जुमा किया है लीना तुफाहा ने और हिंदी में निधीश त्यागी और मैंने अनुवाद किया है। कविता का काम आंसू पोंछना नहीं है। वह रो रहा था, इसलिए उसे संभालने के लिए मैंने उसका हाथ थामा और आंसू पोंछने के लिए मैंने उससे कहा, जब दुख से मेरा गला रुंध रहा था, मैं तुमसे वादा करता हूं कि इंसाफ जीतेगा आखिरकार और अमन जल्दी ही कायम होगा। जाहिर है मैं उससे झूठ बोल रहा था। मुझे पता था कि इंसाफ नहीं मिलने वाला और अमन जल्दी नहीं आने वाला, पर मुझे उसके आंसू रोकने थे। मेरी यह समझ गलत थी कि अगर किसी चमत्कार से हम आंसुओं की नदी रोक लें तो सब कुछ ठीक ठाक तरह से चल निकलेगा। फिर चीजों को हम वैसे ही मान लेंगे जैसी वे हैं। बेरहमी और इंसाफ एक साथ मैदान में घास चरेंगे। ईश्वर शैतान का भाई निकलेगा और शिकार हत्यारे का प्रेमी होगा। पर आंसू रोकने का कोई तरीका नहीं है। वे बाढ़ की तरह लगातार बहे जाते हैं और अमन की रवायतों को तबाह कर देते हैं। और इसलिए आंसुओं की इस कसैली जिद की खातिर आइए आंखों का अभिषेक करें इस धरती के सबसे पवित्र संत के रूप में। कविता का काम नहीं है आंसू पोंछना। कविता को खाई खोदनी चाहिए जिसका बांध वे तोड़ दें और इस ब्रह्मांड को डुबा दें। बहुत शुक्रिया। तो यह किताब बाहर है। तर्जुमा अशोक वाजपेयी, यादवेंद्र, निधीश त्यागी और ऋचा नागर ने किया है और इसकी कीमत 250 रुपए है। शुक्रिया।
अंजलि, थॉट वर्कर स्टेटमेंट।
क्योंकि इस बारे में बात अंग्रेजी में हो चुकी है, स्टेटमेंट का भी अनुवाद हिंदी में किया गया है। ये वाटर ट्रांसपोर्ट वर्कर्स फेडरेशन ऑफ इंडिया का एक पर्चा है जो उन्होंने 14 फरवरी 2024 को निकाला है। देश के 11 प्रमुख बंदरगाहों पर 3500 से अधिक श्रमिकों को का प्रतिनिधित्व करने वाले भारतीय जल परिवहन श्रमिक संघ ने इजरायल या किसी अन्य देश से हथियारबंद माल को लोड या अनलोड करने से इनकार करने का फैसला किया है। हम बंदरगाह कर्मचारी, श्रमिक संघों का हिस्सा हमेशा युद्ध और निर्दोष लोगों, महिलाओं और बच्चों की हत्या के खिलाफ खड़े रहेंगे। गाजा पर इजरायल के हाल ही में किए गए हमले में हजारों फिलिस्तीनियों को भारी पीड़ा और नुकसान में डाल दिया गया है। स्थिति इतनी खराब रही है कि माँ बाप बम धमाकों में मारे गए अपने खुद के बच्चों को पहचानने में नाकामयाब रहे हैं। इस समय हमारे देश के सदस्यों ने सामूहिक रूप से सभी प्रकार के हथियारों युक्त कार्गो को संभालने से इनकार करने का निर्णय लिया है। इसीलिए हम कार्गो हैंडलिंग के क्षेत्र में सक्रिय विभिन्न प्रमुख बंदरगाहों के भारतीय बंदरगाह और डॉक कर्मचारी अपने सदस्यों से आह्वान करते हैं कि वह भी अब फिलिस्तीन इजरायल में सैन्य सामग्री ले जाने वाले किसी भी जहाज के साथ काम करने से सख्त मना करें। इसीलिए हम तत्काल युद्ध विराम का आह्वान करते हैं। जिम्मेदार ट्रेड संगठनों के रूप में हम शांति के लिए अभियान चलाने वालों के साथ अपनी एकजुटता की घोषणा करते हैं। स्वतंत्र फिलिस्तीन की मांग में हम दुनिया के मजदूरों और शांति प्रिय लोगों को साथ खड़ा होते देख हमें बेहद खुशी होगी। इस पे हस्ताक्षर हैं टी नरेंद्र राव के, जो कि जनरल सेक्रेटरी हैं वाटर ट्रांसपोर्ट वर्कर्स फेडरेशन ऑफ इंडिया के। थैंक यू। ऑल्सो वन स्मॉल रिमाइंडर, जो आरवा का ऑडियो बजा था उसमें उन्होंने ये भी बताया था कि कैसे कंपनियां, जो छोटी बातें करने की बात हो रही थी, उन कंपनियों के नाम हमने कुछ पोस्टर्स में यहाँ पे छपवा रखे हैं. दीज पोस्टर्स आर ऑल्सो अवेलेबल आउटसाइड मेंशनिंग द नेम्स ऑफ ऑल द कंपनीज दैट यू कैन बॉयकॉट. थैंक्स.
Thank you, Anjali. So this concludes the first part. Thank you very much to all the speakers. We are now going to invite the leaders of political parties to come to the dais. Mr. Salman Shukrushi is already here. Asaduddin Owaisi, Dipankar Bhattacharya, Amarjit Kaur, and Subhashini Ali, please come to the dais.
Hello. Hello.
In the meantime,
Hello.
may I remind you that somewhere in the hall there is a donation box going around. So if it comes your way, please be generous, because this program is entirely funded by voluntary donations from individuals. And if you can't see the donation box, there's another one at the entrance. So on your way out, please empty your pockets, whatever there is in there. And secondly, for those who have not registered, registration is optional. You don't have to register if you don't want to. But if you register on the registration form, there is a column where you can indicate whether you are interested in future activities of this kind. So if you are interested in future activities, please do fill the form and give your contact details. Thank you.
क्या चाहिए बताओ.
माइक नीचे रख लेंगे, आवाज आएगा. भाई साहब, ये गिर जाएगा.
Friends, if you settle down, we'll start in the right next minute. If you will please settle down. Not home. Friends, we are going to start now. Can you please settle down? Down. Salam. Palestine will be free. Okay, friends, we are going to start now. मीडिया के दोस्तों से रिक्वेस्ट है कि थोड़ा माने शांत हो जाइए, क्योंकि अभी हमारे friends across the political spectrum, actually, despite the enforced silence in Delhi, there are many voices in India, many political parties, people's movements who stand with Palestine. They watch with horror the fact that today in Palestine, what is not only being dismantled is human life and property, but also the organizations that can deliver relief. There is no, if it is taking us so long, despite this solidarity across the world, to enforce a ceasefire, who will be left to deliver relief? So I think it is very important that our voices will be taken to the parliament and to every nook and corner of the country, that even though we are not heard, we continue to speak. Our first speaker today is Salman Khurshid, who is, I mean, I'm sure again, known to everybody. He is a lawyer, a writer, a politician with the Indian National Congress. He has also been a former Minister of External Affairs of India, and it was quite a different India then, especially with regards to the support for Palestine. Just recently, the International Congress has reiterated its long-standing support for the rights of the Palestinian people to land, self-government, and to live with dignity and respect. And Mr. Khurshid, in a number of interventions recently, has been a strong advocate of India's continued involvement in ending Israel's war in Gaza and in bringing peace to Palestine. So he speaks from a position of shame that certainly, in fact, that the India that many of us once knew is so weakened. So thank you, Mr. Khurshid.
Thank you very much, and to all my distinguished colleagues in the panel here, and some remarkable people who are sitting in the audience. I have no words, frankly. I stand here in solidarity with the people of Palestine, but saying that we stand with the people of Palestine is indeed saying that we stand for humanity, essential humanity. And why this has happened, how this has happened is something that we can read tomes on. But the fact remains that we have become accustomed in our lifetime. We've become accustomed to just expecting things to sort themselves out. As everybody has said, the Secretary General himself said that all this didn't happen in one particular moment and on one particular day. The torture, the agony, the pain had been going on for a huge number of months and days and years, and then it finally imploded or exploded. A decision that must have not come easy. But the fact remains that this is a reminder. This is a reminder that what's happening with the people of Palestine is not for them alone. It is for all of us. Ask not for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee, as Hemingway had said. And I think that's the lesson to be taken away. As we grieve, as we feel this tragedy, as we feel the pain of all Palestinian children and women and people, we also know that this is a fate that may well await somebody else. It is not that this happens to someone else far away to be seen only on television screens and in newspaper reports, but it could be here amongst us tomorrow. It could be anywhere else in the world. And how do we stop it? We must stop it when it is still in a bud, unwholesome, toxic bud that will flower, that will not bloom, but that will flower to impose this tragedy on someone else, somewhere else. This is a great sacrifice I believe the Palestinian people have made for civilization, for humanity, for the children of tomorrow. It's a huge sacrifice. And if we stand here to say that we stand in support of Palestine, we are actually standing in support of ourselves for essential humanity. May I just say that our resolution, our determination, we don't know how far it will take us and how far it will go. But indeed, it is that our government, as the democratic government, has to respond. Our government has to respond, but so has to be the response of those that we have assumed for long are tied to the cause of Palestine. Today, someone unties himself or herself because there is something at the end of the road, a gold mine at the end of the road, a weapon at the end of the road.
commerce at the end of the road is today betraying humanity. And therefore, we stand here, and I represent my party. I've been asked by my Congress president especially to be here to say that we are here in solidarity. But this solidarity is something that will be meaningless unless we find ways and means of reversing the process in the world where human tragedy matters not. There was a time when war happened, and all war is bad. All war is bad, and we know the war in Vietnam, the war in Central Asia, the war in Europe, etc. We all know the wars in Africa. We all know how bad those wars are and how much pain they inflict. We know that. But we were supposed to have learned the lessons from the First World War. We had supposed to have learned lessons from the Second World War. Today it is writ large that we learned no lessons, that we moved not an inch forward towards securing humanity, that the United Nations looks upon helplessly as people are slaughtered, as genocide happens and it takes place. So please, please, I beg all of you, and I think there is enough already of a sense that we need to come together. We were not together in the world. We were not together here at home in India, and therefore we were inflicted consequences that are unimaginable. Today, those consequences unfold in front of us in Palestine. They unfolded in front of us in many other places, but certainly it is almost like a laboratory of hate and laboratory of violence and a laboratory of genocide that we see in Palestine. Close this laboratory down, raise your voice, and I believe that the world today, forget about the world, today the people of Israel, I believe, don't support what is happening, and the consequences of what is being done will be felt by those very people who are doing it. But the voice of humanity must prevail. We must overcome. We must overcome as soon as we can. And it's a very small thing to ask for ceasefire to be brought about immediately. There may be intricate problems that will take time to resolve, to solve, to find solutions of, but the ceasefire is something that could happen now and this moment. Let us demand for a ceasefire now and here. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Kusi. Sorry, some confusion. The next speaker is Amarjit Kaur, who is General Secretary of the All India Trade Union Congress and has been very, very active, in particular, if I'm not mistaken, in opposing the recruitment of Indian workers in replacement of Palestinian workers in Israel. So thank you for coming, Amarjit.
Co-chairs and my colleagues on the dais and all friends of Palestine in this very hall. जो सुबह का सेशन हुआ, जस्ट बिफोर अस जो सेशन हुआ, उस सेशन ने बहुत कुछ हमारे स्पीकर्स ने सामने बातें रखी. मैं उनको तो नहीं दोहराऊंगी, आई विल ट्राई टू टेक इट फॉरवर्ड. लेकिन ये वाला सेशन जो है एक्शन के लिए है. Perhaps that is how you designed it. The political parties, the mass organization should tell. This is the first public meeting in Delhi against Palestine. So what are you going to do? So that is what I should talk about, I think. AITUC और Communist Party of India pre-independence era से ही Palestine के साथ थे. From that period onwards, Indian freedom movement stood with Palestine. Post-independence, we stood with Palestine. और यहाँ बात करते हुए apartheid, genocide, we have used all the words. South Africa suffered from apartheid and they have proved कि हमने apartheid झेला, ये नहीं होने देंगे दुनिया में, genocide नहीं होने देंगे. So they took the stand, and that's all of us are telling that it was very good that South Africa could take the whole case to ICJ. Also in the morning session, it was said that it is actually colonial project. I think Fabian ji was speaking. Even Siddharth was very forthright. Yes, I am not surprised Modi government kya kar rahi hai. It is a colonial project going on. And when in India, we were suffering under British colonial rule, where were they standing? Inke forefathers kya kar rahe the? They stood with the British Empire. उन्होंने हमारी आजादी के साथ धोखा किया और colonial masters की दलाली की. So if today Mr. Modi is taking that position, having been brought up by RSS, the RSS which openly head Guar had said कि मेरी inspiration Hitler और Mussolini है. The founder of RSS said, our philosophy, हमारा फलसफा, हमारी विचारधारा, our ideology is Nazism, fascism. He openly said, we are not fighting against British colonial rule. Then he was asked, आपके enemies कौन हैं? तो he named 3. He said, Christians हैं, मुसलमान हैं और लाल झंडा है. So we are not surprised. He is carrying forward the philosophy, ideology, understanding, and the battle their people fought against Indians and in favor of Britishers. तो आज भी हम क्या देख रहे हैं फिर? So when freedom movement was siding with all those who were wanting human rights to be given, wanting for their freedom, these very people who are ruling today, they were not with the freedom movement. And that's why their poser is this. दूसरी बात मैं जो कहने चाह रही हूं, why India is the biggest buyer of Israeli weapons? Why India today stands with, I'm not saying India, I go by what is written here, Indians for Palestine. So Indians are for peace. Indians are for liberation. I'm talking of Indian government. Indian government आज अगर Israel के साथ है, United States of America and Israel nexus is working. And Indian government nexus with that regime began with Vajpayee's issues. I remember some of the friends are here in this room. When Vajpayee ji was Prime Minister, तो तब पहली बार इजराइल के मंत्री को यहाँ बुलाया गया था. And many of us went to India Gate and started marching towards Israeli embassy. और हम सबको रोका गया था, लेकिन हम बहुत बड़ी गिनती में इकट्ठा हुए थे. And we knew what is happening. And it was during his period मोसाद को यहाँ जगह दी गई. मोसाद को स्पेस मिला यहाँ पर. और आज इसीलिए लोगों ने मजाक उड़ाया पूरी दुनिया में. अगर मोसाद इतनी शातिर है, इतना सब जानती है, तो उनको मालूम नहीं है 7 अक्टूबर को क्या होने वाला था. So that exposure has also come, but they were there. So we should not forget that this is the colonial project going on, and during our colonial project when we were enslaved, how the very same people, their forefathers, how they were behaving, and we know how our forefathers, the freedom fighters, were behaving. So we know it. And that's why this gathering has to carry forward the tradition of our freedom movement. And this gathering has to carry forward the tradition of exposure of all those people who stood with Nazis and fascists, and who today are behaving like that. इसलिए सरप्राइजिंग की क्या बात है, वो नौजवान बच्चा मार दिया इन्होंने 2 दिन पहले, दूसरा भी मर गया है. अब 4 सीरियस थे. 1 died on that day. Second has died today. We don't know when the 3rd one or 4th one, they are very serious. और क्या कर रहे हैं, NSA लगा दिया था कल, आज प्रेशर में रिमूव किया है, लेकिन फार्मर्स आर बीइंग समन्ड एंड नो एक्शंस ऑन द गवर्नमेंट. ये हम देख नहीं रहे क्या? हाउ वाज स्टेप आफ्टर स्टेप द इंडिया इज बीइंग शिफ्टेड इन द डायरेक्शन ऑफ फासिस्ट वे. देख रहे हैं हम लोग. और इसीलिए हमारे लिए तो और भी ज्यादा जरूरी है, हमारे लिए तो अटमोस्ट है कि हमको पैलेस्टाइन की विक्ट्री की बात करनी है और हमको इजराइल की हार की बात करनी है और हमको पैलेस्टाइन को होमलैंड मिलना चाहिए उसकी बात करनी है। ये हमें करनी है क्योंकि हमें अपने होमलैंड को भी तो बचाना है ना। हमारी ज्योग्राफी यहाँ है, हम लोग यहाँ हैं, लेकिन हमारी पूरी की पूरी आत्मा को कहाँ शिफ्ट कर रही है मोदी गवर्नमेंट। We have to be very very sharp on this thing। इसीलिए उस बैटल को हम अपने यहाँ की बैटल के रूप में भी देखते हैं, इसलिए हमें सख्ती से ये कहना पड़ेगा। हम लोगों ने ट्रेड यूनियंस की तरफ से तुरंत विरोध किया जब रिक्रूटमेंट के प्रोसेस की अनाउंसमेंट हुई। सारी सेंट्रल ट्रेड यूनियंस को हमने मोबिलाइज किया, वो हमने तुरंत विरोध किया और हमने एकदम वेलकम किया जब अभी ये जो पोर्ट वर्कर्स है, वाटर वर्कर्स हैं, इन्होंने स्टैंड लिया कि हम कुछ भी डालेंगे नहीं और काम नहीं करेंगे कैरिज वे पे अगर इस तरीके से हथियारों को भेजा जाएगा। हम लोगों ने AITUC का फाउंडेशन डे था 31 अक्टूबर को। AITUC वाज बोर्न इन 1920। तो ये हमारा 103 इयर्स कंप्लीट हुए। तो हमने अपना फाउंडेशन डे डेडिकेट किया पैलेस्टाइन कॉज के लिए। ऑल ओवर इंडिया डायरेक्शन थी, थाउजेंड्स ऑफ आवर ऑफिसेस जहां झंडा फहराया जाएगा फाउंडेशन डे पे, ये रेजोल्यूशन पैलेस्टाइन की हक में पढ़ा जाएगा वहां। सो द ट्रेड यूनियन मूवमेंट हैज अ ट्रेडिशन, वी फॉलोड इट, वी ट्राइड टू डू इट। मुझसे बहुत से जर्नलिस्ट ने बाकी ट्रेड यूनियन कोलीग्स को भी कांटेक्ट किया होगा, मुझे भी कांटेक्ट किया। उन्होंने कहा आप विरोध कर रहे हैं तो भाई आप पैलेस्टीनियंस को रिप्लेस करने के लिए हिंदुस्तानी वर्कर्स को भेज रहे हैं तो क्यों नहीं विरोध करेंगे। On 7th October, you evacuate our students and workers from there, 1300 of them. And when conflict has reached to such a high level, now you want to send our workers to the danger zone? Why we should allow it? तो उन्होंने कहा कि आप क्या करेंगे, हमने कहा कुछ भी करेंगे, we are opposing it। और उसके साथ साथ मैंने वो कहा जो यहां पर हमारे इस सेशन से जस्ट पहले बातों में उठा कि आज जर्मनी के बच्चे क्या बोलते हैं, उनसे पूछा जाए तो वो क्या कहते हैं। तो मेरा एक सीधे कहना था, वो ये कहना था हम नहीं चाहते हमारी यंगर जनरेशन, यहां बहुत यूथ है, हम नहीं चाहते हमारी यंगर जनरेशन को ये सुनना पड़े आगे जाके कि जब पैलेस्टीनियंस को बर्बाद किया जा रहा था, एनिहिलेट किया जा रहा था, जेनोसाइड कमिट हो रहा था और तुम्हारे हिंदुस्तान की सरकार पैलेस्टीनियंस को रिप्लेस करके हिंदुस्तानी मजदूरों को भेज रहे थे, तो क्या कर रहे थे तुम्हारे मां बाप और क्या कर रहे थे तुम लोग। आई डोंट वांट टू फेस, इट मे बी ट्रेड यूनियन व्यू पॉइंट, वर्कर जाए उनकी सेफ्टी नहीं है, कुछ नहीं है, बट द इश्यू इज why our next generations will have to face this question। आज जापानीज की नेक्स्ट जनरेशन सवालों का जवाब दे रही कि वर्ल्ड वार के दौरान और दूसरे देशों को कॉलोनीज बनाया आप लोगों ने और वहां की औरतों के साथ आपने क्या किया, उनको जवाब देना पड़ रहा है। और जो लोग अपार्थाइड से आज शर्मिंदा हैं, अपनी ही जो उनकी हुकूमत थी जिन मास्टर्स की, वो आज जवाब नहीं दे पा रहे हैं कि अपार्थाइड क्यों हुआ वहां साउथ अफ्रीका में। तो हम अपनी नई पीढ़ियों को ये सवालों के लिए खड़ा करेंगे कि दुनिया में पैलेस्टीनियंस को एनिहिलेट करने की पूरी कोशिश हो रही थी और हिंदुस्तान की सरकार वहां मजदूर भेज रही थी पैलेस्टीनियंस को रिप्लेस करने के लिए, तो तुम लोग क्या कर रहे थे। इसलिए हमारी अगली पीढ़ियां शर्मिंदगी महसूस नहीं करें, हमें लड़ाई लड़नी है, अपनी यंगर जनरेशन को साथ लेके लड़नी है। और हम सब ये जानते हैं, लास्ट में जो मैं कहूंगी, लिमिटेड टाइम है आज बोलने का सबके लिए, सबने बातचीत करनी है। मुझसे यह भी पूछा गया, प्रधानमंत्री से शुरू में गलती हो गई, वो जैसे ही 7 अक्टूबर का घटना हुआ, प्रधानमंत्री इमीडिएटली केम इन स्टेटमेंट फेवरिंग इजराइल। फिर जी हमारी देखो विदेश मंत्रालय ने करेक्शन कर ली एंड दे केम आउट विद ए बैलेंस्ड स्टेटमेंट। अरे कौन सी दुनिया में जी रहे हैं आप? It was a calculated statement from Mr. Modi because the elections were in corner in some states and he wanted to give a message कि ये मुसलमान जो है पैलेस्टाइन के साथ खड़े होंगे, हम इजराइल के साथ खड़े हैं। और इनके जो अंधभक्त हैं, उनके जो वो व्हाट्सएप के ऊपर होता है ना, वो जिसमें आप अपनी शक्ल दिखाते हैं, वहां इजराइल का झंडा लगा लिए। इतने मूर्ख है ये, इसलिए वो बैलेंस कर लिया विदेश मंत्रालय ने नहीं, वो प्रधानमंत्री का कैलकुलेटेड मूव था। सो लेट अस अंडरस्टैंड गवर्नमेंट क्या करेगी क्या नहीं करेगी, वी हैव टू क्रिएट प्रेशर, बट वी हैव टू सी टू इट दैट इंडियन मैसेज come forward in support of Palestine. And I, on behalf of AITUC, promise you, and also on behalf of CPI, जिसने अभी अभी अपनी नेशनल काउंसिल की मीटिंग के दौरान एक इसके ऊपर मीट की, उसमें पैलेस्टाइन एम्बेसडर भी गए थे। हम जितनी कॉन्फ्रेंसेस कर रहे हैं अपनी ट्रेड यूनियंस की, हर कॉन्फ्रेंस जो स्टेट की हो रही है, ऑल इंडिया की हो रही है, उसमें एक सेशन पैलेस्टाइन को डिवोट कर रहे हैं, ताकि वो वर्कर वहां से सुन के जाए, सुन के उसका स्टैंड ले। तो वी नीड टू डू many things. Many good ideas will be there with all the parties and the mass organizations. They will go ahead. Now we have decided we will be having a exhibition on Palestine, and we will be fixing up date very soon, and we'll be asking Palestine ambassador to come and inaugurate. Once it is done, it will be in the beginning of March. तो हमें कुछ भी through any means ये मैसेज सब जगह जाना चाहिए, और हिंदुस्तान की सरकार को समझ में आनी चाहिए कि तुम जो कर रहे हो उससे हम अनभिज्ञ नहीं हैं। हम जानते हैं इतिहास तुमको माफ नहीं करेगा, और हम नहीं चाहते कि इतिहास हिंदुस्तानियों के ऊपर भारी पड़े, इसलिए हम तो लड़ेंगे। इंडियंस फॉर पैलेस्टाइन, यस वी आर फॉर पैलेस्टाइन। थैंक यू।
हमारी अगली वक्ता हैं कॉमरेड फ्रेंड्स, आवर नेक्स्ट स्पीकर, हमारी अगली वक्ता सुभाषिनी अली हैं। वो फॉर्मर मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट रही हैं, पॉलिट ब्यूरो मेंबर ऑफ द CPIM हैं, एंड ऑल इंडिया डेमोक्रेटिक विमेंस एसोसिएशन की बहुत बड़ी लीडर हैं। बरसों से she has been an ardent advocate of the rights of the Palestinian people and their people's right to a homeland, their right to return home, and their right to resist Israeli occupation. In अभी हाल ही 2024 में उन्होंने एक बुकलेट ऑथर की है about the current crisis, which is against the genocide in Palestine. So I won't stand between the audience and Subhashini.
Friends and comrades, before I even start to speak, I would just like to say that there's one person's presence whom we are all missing here in this People for Palestine, India for Palestine meeting, and that is Prabir Puryakas. And you know that he was, well, I don't need to tell you about his commitment to this cause and what he did to fulfill that commitment. He's not here with us today. He's fighting a very big battle, and we are all with him in solidarity, but we do miss him today. I just wanted to say that. When I wrote this small booklet about Palestine, and I went and distributed it, and I was talking to people, especially younger people, I realized that there's a lot that is not known about Palestine. बहुत सी बातें हैं जो लोगों को पता नहीं है, और जब उनको पता चलता है, when they hear these facts, then their rage, their anger really comes to the fore. So I think that even today, a lot has been said. I don't want to repeat what has been said. I would just like to talk about a few more points. But I think that the first thing that I would like to say is that the big question that many people are asking, बहुत बड़ा सवाल है कि आखिर ये अमेरिका बार बार अपना वीटो पैलेस्टाइन के पक्ष में क्यों इस्तेमाल करता है? वो तो लैंड ऑफ द फ्री और क्या पैलेस्टाइन के खिलाफ इस्तेमाल करता है, इजराइल के पक्ष में इस्तेमाल करता है. That's a very big question that many people ask, because there is still an illusion that it's the land of the free and the home of the brave and all that. Therefore human rights, therefore democracy, the US stands for all these things. तो बहुत बड़ा सवाल लोग पूछते हैं that if they stand for these things, why are they continuously using this veto? This was done before, but now when everything is there for us to see, even the International Court of Justice is saying plausibly genocide is happening. Why are they doing it? So I think that the first thing that we need to remember is that this is an imperialist war that we are seeing, and that Israel is an outpost of imperialism that was deliberately planted in the place that it is planted for very, very strong reasons, as an outpost of first English, British, and then US imperialism. It was like a dagger aimed at the heart of the Arab world, and certainly the control of oil was a very big factor in that. तो ये हम लोगों को भूलना नहीं चाहिए कि जब हम कहते हैं कि क्यों अब अमेरिका बार बार वीटो कर रहा है, तो हमको ध्यान रखना चाहिए कि साम्राज्यवाद क्या है. आज उसका नकाब अगर कभी था तो वो बिल्कुल गिर गया है, उसका घिनौना चेहरा बिल्कुल सामने है, और वो बता रहा है कि ये है साम्राज्यवाद. हम नरसंहार के पक्ष में भी कुछ भी करने के लिए तैयार हैं, अगर नरसंहार करने वाला हमारे पक्ष में हो, हमारे पक्ष का हो. तो ये जो इजराइल बनाया ही गया था, उसके जन्म को अगर हम देखें तो वो साम्राज्यवाद का एक टापू के रूप में बनाया गया था, जानबूझ करके. Somebody said, I saw an interview today, some people suggested we can go to Uganda. There's no question of you're going to Uganda. You had to go there. You were the imperial outpost of imperialism. उसका जो नक्शा है वो भी एक चाकू की तरह है, जिसकी नोक अरब दुनिया के दिल की तरफ है. ये उनके तेल पर नियंत्रण रखने के लिए एक बहुत बड़ी साजिश थी. बहुत से लोग इन चीजों को मानते नहीं हैं. बहुत से लोग सालों से कह रहे हैं आप लोग तो साजिशों की बात बहुत करते हैं, कंस्पिरेसी थियरीज की बात बहुत करते हैं. लेकिन आज मेरे ख्याल से इन सारी चीजों को अब सच मानने के लिए दुनिया के जो लोग शांति चाहते हैं वो मजबूर हो रहे हैं, और जो ये असली चेहरा है साम्राज्यवाद का उसको भी लोग अब पहचानने लगे हैं. द मास्क हैज फॉलन ऑफ, and the real face of imperialism is there for all of us to see. They will go to any lengths to defend that outpost of theirs which was deliberately created. और यहाँ पर मैं बच्चों को भी बताती हूँ, और वो उनको ताज्जुब होता है कि आपको याद करना चाहिए कि 1948 में in 1948 there was no country known as Israel in this world. वो पैलेस्टाइन था. There was only a country called Palestine. लेकिन लगातार उसका नक्शा इजरायली हुकूमत की तरफ से, मतलब इवन बेन गुरियन हैड अ पैलेस्टीनियन पासपोर्ट, बट दैट मैप ऑफ इजराइल हैज बीन कंसिस्टेंटली चेंज्ड बाय द इजरायली गवर्नमेंट. उस नक्शे को लगातार बदला गया है, और जो पैलेस्टीनियंस की का अनुपात है उस जनसंख्या में वो करीब करीब 70% है. लेकिन धीरे धीरे वो नक्शा इस तरह से बदला गया कि 70% लोगों को करीब करीब 25% जमीन में घेर करके एक दरबे के अंदर बंद करके रखा गया, और 25% लोगों के हाथ में 75% जमीन आई. सो पैलेस्टाइन वाज द कंट्री. Israel did not exist in 1948. There was only Palestine. But regularly the government of Israel has been changing that map, altering that map. And over the years, a large section of the population, about 70% of the people who happen to be Palestinians, have been just herded into about 20% of the area from where now they want to throw them out even further. तो ये जो इजराइल की हमेशा से इनका इरादा रहा है, और जिस इरादे का मतलब कभी कभी कुछ अच्छी बातें कुछ यूएस प्रेसिडेंट्स वगैरह ने कहा, ओ यू आर गोइंग टू फार, यू शुडंट डू दिस, यू आर नॉटी बॉयज, नाउ वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू अलाउ इट, बट दे नेवर रियली इंटरवीन टू स्टॉप this process of altering that map. And finally, you know, now Mr. Netanyahu stands up and says, well, now here's the new map. And in this new map, there is no Palestine. There is no Palestine. And that is what we must remember before we start talking about October 7th and this, that, and the other, because this is what their intention was. The intention was very clear. जो वहां के राष्ट्रपति हैं उन्होंने स्पष्ट कह दिया था कि अब ये नया नक्शा है, अभी तक तो हम इनको खदेड़ रहे थे लेकिन अब ये नया नक्शा है, इस नए नक्शे में पैलेस्टाइन के लिए और फिलिस्तीनियों के लिए कोई जगह है ही नहीं, अब इजराइल ही इजराइल बचेगा। तो अब सवाल ये उठता है कि ये हमारे सामने हकीकत है, अब हो क्या रहा है? वी आर सीइंग व्हाट the US is doing. We are seeing what the UK was doing. 2 days back they abstained. 2 दिन पहले उनको भी थोड़ी सी शर्म आई, इंग्लैंड को उन्होंने तटस्थ रहने का फैसला लिया। फ्रांस और जर्मनी जो पहले अमेरिका का साथ देते थे अब वो भी थोड़ा सा पीछे हटने लगे हैं। So this is happening, and this is happening because of the pressure of the people. This is happening because of the pressure of the protests of the people who are standing up for the Palestinians. And I would like to add here that some people look at this conflict as a religious conflict. कुछ लोगों को ऐसा लगता है कि ये कोई एक धार्मिक टकराव है, ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं है। ऐसा सोचने से हम फिलिस्तीन के लोगों के साथ नाइंसाफी कर रहे हैं, और जो लाखों जूइश मूल के लोग पूरी दुनिया में उनके साथ आज खड़े हैं, उनके साथ भी घनघोर नाइंसाफी कर रहे हैं। This is not a religious conflict. This is a conflict between people who have been colonized, people who are suffering from the worst kind of colonization, and the forces of imperialism. This is what this conflict is all about. And every single human being on this planet has to decide which side he or she is on. And we are, of course, we have made our decision clear, but we have to do much more because we have got a history. हमारी एक परंपरा है हमारे देश की। क्या परंपरा है कि 1938 में गांधी कहते हैं कि अरब लोगों का उतना ही अधिकार है फिलिस्तीन में जितना कि अंग्रेजों का है इंग्लैंड में, जितना कि फ्रेंच लोगों का है फ्रांस में। ये गांधी ने कहा in 1938 that the Arabs have the same kind of right to Palestine as the French do to France or the British do to England. So that has been a stand of our freedom movement. And after independence, when India donned the mantle of the leadership, it was a Samuhik leadership of the non-aligned movement, they didn't tom-tom the fact that they were Vishwa Gurus or Vishwa this or Vishwa that, or even leaders of the global south. They had come out of a struggle against imperialism, and they wanted to stand with other countries who were also part of that struggle of facing the same kind of enemy. And that is why from that time on, we were staunch supporters of the people of Palestine and their cause. तो हमारी ये परंपरा है कि आजादी के बाद जब हम आजाद हुए तो हम उन लोगों के साथ खड़े हुए। हमने कहा हम तटस्थ हैं, हम उन लोगों के साथ हैं जो साम्राज्यवाद के खिलाफ लड़ रहे हैं, जो औपनिवेशवाद के खिलाफ लड़ रहे हैं। हमने ये नहीं कहा कि हमारी 56 इनकी छाती है, हम विश्व गुरु हैं, हम विश्व मित्र हैं, हम ग्लोबल साउथ के नेता हैं, सब कुछ हैं। हमने ये सब कुछ नहीं कहा, लेकिन जो नॉन अलाइन्ड मूवमेंट था, जो साम्राज्यवाद के खिलाफ लड़ाई थी, उसमें हमने कहा हम उन लोगों के साथ हैं जो लड़ रहे हैं। लेकिन आज हम कहाँ हैं, इसके बारे में और भी लोगों ने बहुत सारी बातें की हैं, लेकिन मुझे बस इतना ही जोड़ना है। A lot has been said about where we are today, the shamelessness of our government, the shamelessness of our ministers who are going to international conferences और वहां जाकर के बोलते नहीं हैं, मिमियाते हैं। They mew because today they have decided, उन्होंने एक फैसला ले लिया है that they are lackeys of imperialism. They have decided, as long as we are number one lackey, we are happy. But we have decided कि हम लोग पालतू हैं साम्राज्यवाद के, बस एक नंबर का पालतू हमको मान लो, क्योंकि भाई हम तो फिर स्पेशल लोग हैं ना, लेकिन हम हैं वही. That's what our foreign minister said in Munich. He said, we are not anti-West, we are just non-West. I mean, amazing. He's a very intelligent man. और फिर वो मिमियाते हैं इजराइल से और कहते हैं भाई देखो इतना मत मारो, मार लो लेकिन इतना मत मारो, तुम थोड़ा ज्यादा कर रहे हो. और एक तरफ वो कह रहे हैं मत मारो, और उसी दिन अडानी के जो वो ड्रोन्स हैं उनका एक शिपमेंट जा रहा है इजराइल को ताकि और मारा जाए और लोगों की वहां पर हत्या की जाए. सो इफ वी आर सेइंग द यूएस इज कंप्लिसेंट, द यूके इज कंप्लिसेंट, वी आर आल्सो कंप्लिसेंट. We are also supplying weaponry that is killing, that is part of this genocide. आप देखिए कि हॉलैंड के अंदर जो हॉलैंड की न्यायपालिका है उसने अभी 2-3 दिन पहले पास किया, पारित कर दिया है कि आप हॉलैंड की तरफ से अब जो वहां पर फाइटर जेट्स हैं उनके स्पेयर पार्ट्स नहीं भेज सकते हैं. You cannot export those spare parts anymore. लेकिन हमारे यहाँ हमको खुशी हो रही है कि ये तो आत्मनिर्भर भारत है, कि देखो हम अपने ही किसानों को ही नहीं मार रहे हैं, हम फिलिस्तीनियों को भी मार रहे हैं, विदेश में भी हम लोगों को मार रहे हैं, यहां भी नरसंहार करेंगे, वहां भी करेंगे, उसकी थोड़ी सी ट्रेनिंग ले लेंगे. तो ये जो हम लोगों की हालत है आज, इसके खिलाफ जो बहुत से लोगों ने क्या हम करें. और हमारे जो फेबियन साहब उन्होंने बहुत एक बड़ी बात की कि बाइडेन इज स्लोली स्लीप वॉकिंग हिज वे टू डिफीट. तो हमारे यहाँ तो स्लोली और स्लीप वॉकिंग नहीं, लेकिन लेट्स इंश्योर दैट दिस गवर्नमेंट आल्सो वॉक्स इट्स वे टू डिफीट. दैट इज व्हाट वी हैव टू डू इफ वी वांट टू वंस अगेन स्टैंड in solidarity with Palestine and with the struggling people of the world. इतना कह करके मैं 2 बातें ही और बोलूंगी. प्लीज स्टॉप. 2 बातें उन्होंने कहा, 1.5. एक तो UNRWA का जो पैसा इन लोगों ने रोक रखा है, ये एक क्राइम है. कोई भी सबूत नहीं है कि उनके लोग हमास की मदद कर रहे थे. नंबर 1, हमारे प्रस्ताव में ये होना चाहिए कि वो जो पैसा है that should be not stop. Once again, that aid needs to go there. And lastly, I'd like to say, वो कहते हैं, Israel कहती है, everyone we are killing is Hamas. Everyone we are killing is Hamas. But 2/3 of the people that they've killed are women and children. 2/3. There were 5,000 pregnant women on the 8th of October in Gaza. There were nearly 150 infants in the ICU. I think many of them are not alive today. This is the level of genocide. Just 2 days back, and I will not read it out, you will ask you to read it, the rapporteurs of the UN, they have come out with a most scathing indictment of the kind of sexual abuse and sexual violence that women in Gaza are facing. They are facing rape, they are facing stripping, they are facing being locked up in cages, they are facing every kind of abuse, apart from the fact that they are denied medical aid, they are denied food, they are denied help for their children. This is what is happening there. This is what we have to recognize, and this is what we have to fight against. This, as I said, is the real, naked, ugly face of imperialism that we have to shed all our illusions about and stand up to fight this real enemy of the people of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Subhashini. I think you are right that it is an imperialist war. And I am sorry to say that I was born myself in an imperialist country, Belgium, at a time when Congo, I don't know what there is to choose now, but anyway, I am sorry to say that we were never told as children, either by our parents or by our teachers, what Belgium had done in Congo. In fact, we were reading Tintin au Congo. I don't know if any of you have read Tintin in Congo, a very racist and colonial cartoon where the white man Tintin goes to Congo, shoots a lot of wild animals, and catches a few baddies. And by the end of the story, he is a hero, and the black people worship his statue. Anyway, the last speaker is Dipankar Bhattacharya, an old friend who is also General Secretary of CPIML Liberation, one of the few organizations that I think not only spoke out on this very early, but also did try some street actions. And I'm saying one of the. Okay. So Dipankar has been very patient. He was the first to arrive, if I'm not one of the first. So you promised me 3 minutes. He's the last speaker. We will give him as much time as Subhashini, who spoke. I was warned that controlling Amarjit and Subhashini would be very difficult, but we will give Dipankar the same amount of time as Subhashini.
How long Subhashini spoke.
And then we will move to the resolution. Thank you.
Anyway, साथियों, पैलेस्टाइन के साथ एकजुटता का इजहार करते हुए हम पैलेस्टाइन की बात ज़्यादा नहीं करेंगे। पैलेस्टाइन के आईने में गाज़ा में जो कुछ हो रहा है, इसके आईने में थोड़ा अपने देश की बात ज़्यादा करेंगे। कायदे से आज साउथ अफ्रीका ने जो काम किया वो हिंदुस्तान को करना चाहिए था। अगर हमारे आज़ादी के आंदोलन का जो इतिहास है, उसकी जो विरासत है, अगर हमारे देश के लिए, राज्य के लिए उसका कोई मतलब रहता, तो आज जिस तरह से साउथ अफ्रीका ने पैलेस्टाइन की पीड़ा को महसूस किया, उस एपेटाइट को महसूस किया, तो हम भी महसूस कर सकते थे। हम भी सदियों से, यहाँ 200 साल कम से कम रेसिस्ट कॉलोनियल रूल के शिकार रहे हैं। जालियांवाला बाग से लेकर के लगातार मैसेकर्स के शिकार रहे हैं, तो हमें भी करना चाहिए था, तो हमने नहीं किया। लेकिन बात सिर्फ इतनी नहीं है कि हमने नहीं किया, बात इससे कहीं ज्यादा खतरनाक है। जो हमारे साथियों ने कहा कि वी आर बीइंग रिकॉग्नाइज्ड एंड सीन एज बीइंग कंप्लिसिट इन व्हाटएवर इज हैपनिंग इन गाजा इन दिस जेनोसाइड। दुनिया में करीब 5 देश के बारे में ऐसी चर्चा है। इजराइल तो है ही, अमेरिका है, ब्रिटेन है, जर्मनी है, और उसके साथ अगर किसी और देश का नाम लिया जा रहा है, दिस इज द ग्लोबल परसेप्शन कि वो इंडिया है। और ये जो परसेप्शन है वो हम समझ सकते हैं कि ये दिस इज वन परसेप्शन व्हिच इज रियली रूटेड इन रियलिटी। उसी कंप्लिसिटी का ही एक एक्सप्रेशन है कि दुनिया के तमाम देशों में बड़े बड़े जुलूस निकल रहे हैं। यहां तक कि जिन देशों की पॉलिसी अलग है, उसी अमेरिका में, उसी ब्रिटेन में, वहां कम से कम 10-10, 12-12, दसियों लाख लोगों के जुलूस निकल चुके हैं। लेकिन हमारे यहाँ दिल्ली में हमें इस सवाल पर सड़क पर जाकर के जुलूस निकालने की इजाजत नहीं है। दिस इज ऑल्सो एन एक्ट ऑफ कंप्लिसिटी। ये पूरे इसको बता रहा है इस देश के अंदर। तो हमें लगता है कि इस चीज को हमें आज समझना है। हमारे देश में 90 के बाद जो बदलाव आए, एक बदलाव की हम लोग बहुत चर्चा करते हैं कि नई आर्थिक औद्योगिक नीति आई, और वो आते आते आज कहां पहुंचा आप सब देख रहे हैं। एक बदलाव की बात हम करते हैं कि उसी दौर से ये मंदिर के नाम पर देश में हिंदुत्व का उभार आया, वो आज कहां पहुंचा है हम देख रहे हैं। उसी के साथ उसी बदलाव की एक कड़ी है कि देश की विदेश नीति बदल गई, और उस विदेश नीति जो बदली उसमें अमेरिका तो एक बात है जरूर, उस विदेश नीति के बदलाव का सबसे स्ट्राइकिंग अगर कोई पॉइंट है वो है इजराइल के साथ हमारे ग्रोइंग एक तरह से स्ट्रैटेजिक आइडेंटिफिकेशन, पार्टनरशिप, कन्वर्जेंस जो कह लीजिए इसको। और ये खास तौर पर 2014 के बाद ज्यादा बढ़ गए हैं, और उसी का परिणाम आज हम देख रहे हैं। अगर लोग कह रहे हैं कि हम कंप्लिसिट है, तो उसका एक कारण तो बिल्कुल है कि जो इंटरनेशनल बॉडी में हमारी वोटिंग है, अक्सर हम एब्सटेन कर रहे हैं। एक आध बार अगर कहीं बोल भी दिए, लेकिन हम एब्सटेन कर रहे हैं। जबकि जो ICJ में बातें चल रही है जेनोसाइड पर भी, अभी जो ऑक्यूपेशन पर चल रहा है, मैं देख रहा था आज ही चाइना का एक स्टेटमेंट उस आईसीजे में, चाइना ने कहा है कि भाई वहां अगर कॉलोनियल ऑक्यूपेशन है तो अंडर इंटरनेशनल लॉ पैलेस्टाइन, the people of Palestine, they have a right to resist, and that right includes armed struggle, which cannot be condemned as terrorism. अब ये right, this is what international law permits. तो आज तो ग्लोबल फोरम में इस पर आर्गुमेंट हो रहा है, जेनोसाइड के सवाल पर, ऑक्यूपेशन के खिलाफ। एक तरह से पैलेस्टाइन आज सबसे बड़ा देश दुनिया भर में नेशनल लिबरेशन कोई स्ट्रगल है। अगर एक जमाने में हिंदुस्तान में हम लोग वियतनाम को लेकर के पूरा देश खड़ा होता था, पूरे देश के लेफ्ट के लोग खड़े होते थे, एक समय अगर बांग्लादेश के सवाल पर पूरा हिंदुस्तान खड़ा हुआ, तो आज कायदे से पैलेस्टाइन के सवाल पर हिंदुस्तान को खड़ा होना चाहिए था। लेकिन हम बिल्कुल जो विपरीत छोर पर आ गए हैं, ये हमारे लिए सोचने वाली बात है। आज हम देख रहे हैं कि अदानी देश के अंदर भी और उस इजराइल के अंदर पैलेस्टाइन में, वहां आप देख लेंगे सबसे ज्यादा इन्वॉल्वमेंट अगर है तो अदानी का। पोर्ट उनको मिल गया है, आर्मामेंट इंडस्ट्री में सबसे ज्यादा उसका इन्वेस्टमेंट है, वो आर्म सप्लाई कर रहे हैं। अभी हमने एक वीडियो देखा लंदन के साइंस म्यूजियम में, वहां अदानी शायद वो खुल गया है, उसकी कोशिश है रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी के नाम पर एक गैलरी अदानी को मिल जाए साइंस म्यूजियम में। उस ग्रीन वॉश के खिलाफ वहां के लोग प्रोटेस्ट कर रहे हैं। हमने देखा कि इस समय वहां के बच्चे and their parents, children and their parents, वो साइंस म्यूजियम के अंदर जाकर के बाहर खड़े होकर के प्रोटेस्ट कर रहे थे कि ये अदानी को नहीं मिलना चाहिए, बिकॉज he has got blood on his hands, ये ब्लड मनी है अदानी के। तो अदानी के खिलाफ आज जो दुनिया भर में प्रोटेस्ट हो रहे हैं, वो सिर्फ जल जंगल जमीन के सवाल पर नहीं हो रहा है, वो सिर्फ स्कैम के सवाल पर, वो हिंडनबर्ग के सवाल पर नहीं हो रहा है, वो इस सवाल पर भी हो रहा है। तो हमारे देश में अगर ये कॉरपोरेट के खिलाफ हमारी लड़ाई तेज होती है, उस लड़ाई को हम यहां तक भी पहुंचा सकते हैं। जो हम देख रहे हैं कि हरियाणा में जो 2-3 दिन से हम देख रहे हैं, किसानों को दबाया जा रहा है, ये कौन सा मॉडल है? ये वही इजरायली मॉडल है। 2018 में जिस समय ग्रेट मार्च ऑफ रिटर्न वो प्रोटेस्ट हो रहे थे, हरियाणा की एक टीम, हरियाणा के चीफ मिनिस्टर के नेतृत्व में एक डेलीगेशन इजरायल गया। हरियाणा और इजरायल के बीच में खास नजदीकी है, और वहां से ट्रेनिंग लेकर के आए कि ये जो ड्रोन चल रहा है अभी, ये जो किसानों पर आंसू गैस के गोले बरसाए जा रहे हैं, वो सब पूरी तरह से इजरायली ब्लूप्रिंट है। तो इसीलिए हमारे लिए ये कोई बाहर की बात नहीं है। गाजा में क्या हो रहा है उस स्केल पर अभी नहीं हो रहा है। कश्मीर के लोग जानते हैं क्या हो रहा है कश्मीर के अंदर। तो ये ब्लूप्रिंट, ये जो इजरायली ब्लूप्रिंट है, वो ब्लूप्रिंट हमारे देश में लागू हो रहा है। और आज की डेट में अगर भारत के फांसीवाद की हमें बात करनी है, वो ठीक है, मुसोलिनी से, हिटलर से भी उन्होंने प्रेरणा ली। आज के फांसीवाद के इंडिया में अगर कोई उसके पास सबसे बड़ा मॉडल है, वो मॉडल इस समय इजराइल है, और जिस मॉडल को हमारे ऊपर थोपा जा रहा है। ये आप आइडियोलॉजी के धरातल पर भी देख सकते हैं। अभी बात आई कि इजराइल के बारे में आप कुछ भी बोल दें, इजराइल के किसी ज़ायनिस्ट पॉलिसी का विरोध कर दें, ऑक्यूपेशन का विरोध करें, जेनोसाइड का विरोध करें, आपके ऊपर आरोप लगेगा कि आप एंटीसेमिटिक हैं। दुनिया भर के विश्वविद्यालयों में पता नहीं कितने सारे अध्यापकों को, कितने सारे रिसर्चर्स को, कितने सारे स्टूडेंट्स को इस वक्त, इस समय दंडित किया जा रहा है इसके चलते। आपको पता है कि ब्रिटेन के अंदर जब लेबर पार्टी एक लेफ्ट विंग टर्न लेकर के आगे बढ़ रही थी और जेरेमी कॉर्बिन प्राइम मिनिस्टर बन जाएंगे ऐसी उम्मीद जगी थी, उसमें सबसे बड़ा जो सवाल था जिसके चलते उनको चुनाव में वो नहीं जीत पाए, वो एंटीसेमिटिज्म का उनके ऊपर एक झूठा इल्जाम लगा दिया गया। तो आज हमारे देश में भी वो ज़ायनिज्म का जो डेफिनेशन है, वो हिंदुत्व का भी वही डेफिनेशन है। आज भारत के बारे में आप कुछ बोलेंगे, मोदी सरकार के बारे में बोलेंगे, तो दुनिया भर में कहा जा रहा है कि यू आर हिंदूफोब। हिंदूफोबिया, एंटीसेमिटिज्म की तरह एक शब्द कॉइन किया गया, हिंदूफोबिया। और पूरे मोदी सरकार के बारे में जो भी आलोचना, हमारे जो ओवरसीज सिटीजन्स ऑफ इंडिया है, ओसीआई कम्युनिटी, और जो भी क्रिटिकल है इस पर, कोई किसान आंदोलन के पक्ष में अगर खड़े हो रहे हैं, कोई नागरिकता आंदोलन के पक्ष में अगर खड़े हो रहे हैं एंटी-सीए प्रोटेस्ट के साथ, उनका ओसीआई कार्ड छीन लिया जा रहा है, ये इल्जाम लगा करके कि आप एंटी इंडिया हैं। तो हमें लगता है कि जो इजरायली मॉडल ऑफ नेशनलिज्म, इजरायली मॉडल ऑफ सेपरेशन ऑफ डिसेंट, सेपरेशन ऑफ स्ट्रगल्स, इजरायली मॉडल ऑफ सर्वेलेंस, ये सब कुछ हमारे देश में आ चुका है। और इसीलिए हमें लगता है कि इस सवाल को हमें सिर्फ फॉरेन पॉलिसी और सॉलिडारिटी तक समझने से काम नहीं होगा, इसको हमें इंडिया के डोमेस्टिक पॉलिटिक्स का एजेंडा समझना होगा। ये हमारे लिए जरूरी है। हमारे लिए, हमारा कभी भी सोचता है कि भारत में हम फांसीवाद को खत्म करेंगे बिना पैलेस्टाइन के पक्ष में खड़े हुए और बिना गाजा पट्टी के इस पीड़ा को महसूस किए, हम हिंदुस्तान में फांसीवाद को आज खत्म नहीं कर सकते हैं। इसके लिए जरूरी है। और ये खत्म तभी होगा, ये खत्म तभी होगा कि सरकार के बारे में हम जो कह रहे हैं, अब वो स्लीप वॉक हो, हम धक्का दे तब जाकर के डिफीट में जाए, कैसे जाएंगे, बहुत बड़ी चुनौती हमारे सामने है। लेकिन वाकई अगर मोदी सरकार के खिलाफ एक चार्जशीट, 10 साल का कोई चार्जशीट अगर हम दायर कर रहे हैं, लोग बात कर रहे हैं कितना अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट बढ़ा है, कितनी महंगाई है, कितनी मॉब लिंचिंग है, कितना हमारे देश में डेमोक्रेसी पर, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन पर हमले हुए हैं, तो हमें लगता है कि उस चार्जशीट में मोदी सरकार के खिलाफ ये जो आपकी इजराइल परस्ती है, ये जिस तरह से गाजा पट्टी में जेनोसाइड में मोदी सरकार ने साथ दिया, इसको ऑन टॉप उसमें रखना होगा कि ये चार्जशीट है मोदी सरकार के खिलाफ। 10 साल में आपने हिंदुस्तान को बदनाम सिर्फ नहीं किया, शर्मिंदा सिर्फ नहीं किया, वो एक ही बर्बादी का रास्ता है जो आज पैलेस्टाइन को बर्बाद कर रहा है, उनकी आजादी को लोग छीन रहे हैं। उसी रास्ते पर हिंदुस्तान की आजादी, हमारे देश की नागरिक स्वतंत्रता, हमारा संविधान, हमारा लोकतंत्र, हमारा देश की गंगा जमुनी तहजीब, वो खत्म हो रही है। और इसीलिए हम आप तमाम लोगों से ही अपील करेंगे, बहुत कठिन काम है। अभी कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर्स को जब भेजने की बात आई, अभी पोर्ट वर्कर्स के बारे में हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं। कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर्स का हमारा एक फेडरेशन है और उस फेडरेशन ने एकदम शुरू में ही उन्होंने प्रस्ताव लिया, संकल्प लिया कि हम कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर्स के बीच में अपील करेंगे कि लोग ना जाएं। लेकिन एक वर्कर की बात तो है नहीं। जो हरियाणा में हो रहा है, जो उत्तर प्रदेश में हो रहा है, सरकार एक लेबर एक्सपोर्टर की तरह, इंडेंचर्ड लेबर को भेजने की तरह सरकार ये काम कर रही है। ऐसा नहीं कि कोई किसी का मन किया तो चले गए, कोई वर्कर फ्री नहीं है। वर्कर को मजबूर किया जा रहा है कि आपको यहाँ तो बेरोजगारी है, आप यहाँ भूखे मरेंगे। तो हरियाणा के मजदूर कह रहे हैं कि भाई हम वहां जाकर के मर जाएंगे लेकिन यहाँ भूख से नहीं मरेंगे। तो ये मजबूरी भी है, लेकिन इसके साथ साथ ऑर्गेनाइज्ड पुश, ये पूरे हरियाणा में, ये पूरा आपके वो 3 मिनट एक्स्ट्रा वाला हो गया। ओके, बस खत्म कर रहे हैं। ओके ओके, एक्स्ट्रा टाइम, फाइन फाइन। तो हम खत्म कर रहे हैं। तो वो जो हरियाणा में हम देख रहे हैं, उत्तर प्रदेश में देख रहे हैं, तो ये कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर्स को भेजा जा रहा है। ये जो इतना बड़ा खतरा है, इसको लेके जरूर पूरे मजदूरों में व्यापक अभियान चलाने की जरूरत है। जो पोर्ट वर्कर्स फेडरेशन ने डिसीजन लिया, मैं सलाम करता हूं हमारे पोर्ट वर्कर्स के साथियों को, जो सेंस ऑफ सॉलिडारिटी एंड सेंस ऑफ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, सिर्फ सॉलिडारिटी हमारी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है कि इस समय हम खड़े हों इसके खिलाफ। तो ये देश के ट्रेड यूनियन आंदोलन में ये बात कैसे जाए, हमारे देश के पूरे फांसीवाद के विरोध में जो हम संविधान के पक्ष में खड़े होने की बात करते हैं, उसके साथ साथ हमारी ये चेतना कैसे मजबूत हो, ये हमारे सामने बिल्कुल खुली चुनौती है। एक तो सरकार का दमन जरूर है, लेकिन उस सरकारी दमन के साथ साथ ये जो डिस्टॉर्टेड सेंस ऑफ नेशनलिज्म, जहां एक बड़ा हिस्सा इंडियंस का, दे हैव स्टार्टेड आइडेंटिफाइंग विद इजराइल, दे हैव स्टार्टेड बोरोइंग द इजरायली थ्रेट परसेप्शन, अब वो हमारे देश में इंजेक्ट हो रहा है। तो ये बिल्कुल हमें बदलना होगा इस देश के अंदर। और ये बड़े आज की मीटिंग बहुत आशा जगाने वाला, उत्साह जगाने वाली मीटिंग है। लंबे समय के बाद हम लोग इस तरह से मिले हैं, तो इस जो हमारे सामने टास्क है, बिल्कुल इस टास्क को लेकर के हम लोग आगे बढ़े, सब लोग साथ साथ मिले। और बिल्कुल इसी तरीके से हमें लगता है गाजा पट्टी में जो लोग उन्होंने तय किया कि हम यहाँ से जाएंगे नहीं, मरना है तो ही मरेंगे, तो उनके इस पूरे स्पिरिट को मैं सलाम करता हूँ। गाजा पट्टी के तमाम बच्चों को, वहाँ के डॉक्टरों को, वहाँ के पत्रकारों को, वहाँ के शायरों को, सबको, उस मानवता को सलाम जो आज लड़ रहा है इस संकट के सामने। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया।
बहुत शुक्रिया। Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Please remain seated. We are going to conclude very soon, but please try to avoid leaving now. Since time is short, we are going to move right away to the resolution, and to save time, we will read it not in both English and Hindi because it's the same text. So if you don't mind, I will invite Prakriti to read the resolution. You'll read in English, yeah? And please, a round of applause for Prakriti and all the volunteers who have worked very, very hard. Prakriti, Anjali, Paran, Sanya, Rajshekar, Aban Raza have worked really hard day and night. Now, please don't leave without listening to the resolution. It will be released after the meeting on behalf of Indians for Palestine. Prakriti. Not even 5, 3.
Zindabad.
Prakriti.
If everyone can please be seated for 5-10 minutes, that's all it will take.
5 minutes.
Resolution and Statement of Solidarity, International Court and Justice for Gaza.
Prakriti, not only remain seated, but please, if you can try to avoid this making background noise, because this is going to be recorded, so we need to really hear clearly what is being said. Thank you.
Resolution and Statement of Solidarity, International Court and Justice for Gaza, a public meeting on the ICJ ruling. By January 11, 2024, the daily death rate in Gaza was higher than in any other major 21st century conflict. The death toll in Israel's ongoing assault on Gaza has now crossed 29,000, most of whom are women and children, with over 70,000 Gazans wounded. Among those killed are approximately 85 journalists and media workers, 152 UN workers, 600 health workers, and 12,000 children. The long-term impacts of this continuing massacre go far beyond the immediate casualties: deepening poverty, severe water crisis, the shutdown of healthcare systems, and chronic trauma. According to international experts, the victims of starvation and disease in Gaza may exceed the number of those killed directly during Israeli attacks. On January 26, 2024, in response to South Africa's application against Israel for violating the Genocide Convention in its attacks on Gaza, the International Court of Justice ruled that Israel must, quote, take all measures within its power, quotes, to prevent such actions. This ruling is of historic significance because it is for the first time that the world's highest court has held Israel culpable for its violations of international human rights laws concerning Palestinians. In this regard, the ICJ has deemed the arguments from South Africa as substantiating a plausible claim of genocide. This landmark order of the ICJ also imposes a moral and legal obligation on other country members of the ICJ and signatories of the Genocide Convention, including India, to cease funding or facilitating Israel's military actions. The signatories to the Genocide Convention are obligated to prevent genocide, conspiracy to commit genocide, incitement to commit genocide, and complicity in genocide. They risk transgressing the convention if there is no reprimanding of or suspension of economic, cultural, social relations with Israel, a member country now being tried for genocide. Such is the devastation already caused by Israel's actions that there is a moral responsibility on all signatories to the convention to unequivocally oppose Israel's continuing onslaught. President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa declared in a statement on 8 February that given his country's legacy as a nation that has fought and defeated apartheid, it has a particular obligation to stand up for the rights of people everywhere. It is crucial to remember that India's position has also been one of opposing apartheid. Given this shared stance, we are dismayed to note the Indian government's passivity on the issue and its refusal to forthrightly condemn Israel's inhuman assault on Gaza and Palestinians in the West Bank. Unlike many other countries in the global south that are reassessing their relations with Israel, India continues its close collaboration with it, particularly in the defense and surveillance sectors. It is deeply disturbing, for instance, to learn from recent media reports that amid Israel's ongoing war on Gaza, 20 Hermes 900 military drones produced jointly by the Adani Elbit Advanced Systems India Limited have been sent to Israel for possible deployment in Gaza. Many other Indian companies are also involved in subsidizing joint ventures with Israeli weapon manufacturers. The Indian government is also facilitating the recruitment of Indian workers in replacement of Palestinian workers whose work permits are now suspended. This move is objectionable not just in its support of Israel's decision against Palestinian workers, but also in its indifference to the possible dangers facing Indian workers being sent to Israel. The Indian government has further played into the hands of Israel by suppressing all attempts to protest against the unfolding genocide in Gaza. We thus call upon the Indian government to publicly endorse the latest ruling of the ICJ, stand against all violations of the human rights of Palestinians in Gaza, and refrain from any sort of complicity with Israel. We demand an immediate ceasefire in Palestine. We further call on people across Asia to demonstrate collective solidarity with the people of Palestine in spirit, resources, speech, and action. We particularly welcome the recent decision of the Water Transport Workers Federation of India, representing 3,500 workers at 11 major Indian ports, to refuse any cooperation with the loading or unloading of, quotes, weaponized cargoes from Israel or any other country which could handle military equipment and its allied cargo for war in Palestine, quotes closed. Many other steps can be taken to express support for Palestine, including the submission of photo/video evidence of ongoing war crimes accessed through verified accounts of Palestinian journalists through the online portal of the International Criminal Court, ICC. We should not be left behind as mass protests are sweeping across the world. Stand for Palestine, stand for humanity, ceasefire now. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to add something. It's a good resolution, but I think the resumption of UN HRWA aid is also very, very important because there is no other form of aid that is coming in.
साथियों, first I would like to make an announcement, please. One final announcement.
ये बताओ एक मिनट ये देखो बोला नहीं ये नहीं है
Is it okay? So can we consider the resolution passed with the addition suggested by Subhashini? Yeah. I have one. So you know the International Working Women's Day is coming up on 8th March. Many women's organizations and individuals shall observe and celebrate the day, highlighting the issues of defeating the politics of hatred, saving the democratic rights of women, and demanding an end to the genocide in Palestine and be for the liberation of Palestine. So we request all of you to use these slogans on the 8th of March. साथियों, आखिर में आप सब सिर्फ आपका शुक्रिया अदा कर सकते हैं और अब आई थिंक डिफरेंट ग्रुप्स में ये मीटिंग्स होना चाहिए कि हम इस अभियान को कैसे आगे ले जाएंगे. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. Thank you to all the organizers, all the speakers, and most of all to there is tea outside, so it would be very nice if you would join us for a cup of tea and we can then plot. Thank you.
मजदार भाई मिल गया
So that desk there has the copy. I
नहीं ले लिया था